ma saħħalsulhom il-fuel. Ara ġej.
Wara ftit ġranet kellna rebbieħ ieħor fil-logħba tagħna kontra 30 sekonda bil-maqlub. Suqu fuq ir-riserva xejdu le mhix se tieqaf.
Il-ġimgħa d-dieħla nkunu fuq pompa tal-Enemed oħra nagħtu xi ħaġa oħra.
So everything culminates here. Every driver now has themselves an opportunity, one important moment to decide where they need to be. They know that this championship is 12 races. It's 6 weeks, and it is going to be hard fought from minute 1 to minute last. And the battle starts with an American expansion. Assetto Corsa Competizione. We head upstate to Watkins Glen, New York, and we're here with the opening round of the Multinational Esports Championship 2022. My name's Jake Sperry, Nico Hillebrand, along with me for the ride as we go live with amazing action with TVM Sport, with Motorsport.tv, with ESTV, World Pro Racing, of course, the Malta Motorsport Federation, as well as Enemed and Motorsport Media on top of that. Nico, Watkins Glen, it's a brand new track when it comes to Assetto Corsa Competizione. This is the run to try and get yourself into the FIA Motorsport Games. That's what the winner gets in terms of the finish overall with the Multinational. But the big key is going to be brand new track, quick track, keep yourself in the chase.
Absolutely. Watkins Glen, as you said, for ACC, definitely a new track. Only came out at the end of last month, pretty much. But yeah, this track has been around, well, the venue has been around since the 40s. Since the 50s, this current track has existed in very different variations, and this specific track layout has been around since 1992. So very well known to especially endurance racing, GT racing, and all that jazz already. 5.552 kilometers long if you're from the States, so that's 3.45 miles. And of course in lovely New York, but very deep in the States, so nowhere near the coast.
No, absolutely not. It's closer to Buffalo than it is actually New York City, and a really, really cool circuit. A throwback, some would say, in terms of the way that it runs in comparison to more modern tracks out there in terms of a calendar. But let's talk car for a moment, because everyone will be on the same equal level playing field around in terms of their battling. They're going to be driving around in the Audi R8 LMS, but crucially the Evo 2 version of the car, so the second iteration of the evolution. And there's certain elements of everybody trying to build and develop GT3, and ultimately got GT, and then it's GT Evo and GT Evo 2, and it's going to keep running up as GT3 has become such a populous category in motorsport. I'm just wondering when we get to like GT 358 or something like that. It seems like there's always going to be an iteration of GT3 car somewhere.
I mean, there is GT300 and GT500 as well, so, and GT3 is actually part of GT300 as well over in Japan, but too much different classes. It's going slowly back to the 1950s, 1960s, where you had, 7 different letters and then 2 liter, 5 liter, 3 liter, all that jazz as well. But definitely a very nice new car. Obviously, the newer Audi R8 LMS, the newer 2015 release. Then in 2019, they released the Evo, or 2018. Actually, no, 2019, the first Evo. And then in 2022, of course, this year, the Evo 2, which rectified a lot of complaints that works drivers had about the car, that customer drivers had about the car, and of course also brought new aerodynamics research in that they actually got from the Audi R8 LMS GT2. So, another of the classes that the SRO brought into GT racing not too long ago.
A lot to get stuck into, and there will be a lot to get stuck into for the 2 races that we will have here today. Both races will last the grand total of 20 minutes out there overall, so that's going to be worth keeping in mind. They will also have 15 minutes worth of qualifying to get themselves up to speed and work out where the grid is going to be stacked up in all of the battling that will be going around here today at Watkins Glen. But one of the key things to keep in mind about this championship is that points really do pay for the top 4 positions of category. Beyond that, effectively finishing outside of the top 4 feels rather similar. It's 25 points for a win, 20 points, I believe, for second, 15 for third, 10 for fourth, and then every position after that is a 1-point drop. It is part and parcel of World Pro Racing events that is the point system that gets put in, and it really does put an emphasis on getting consistent near the top of the field. Really shows that victories do matter in this series.
Yeah, not just that. We also have the 2 bonus points, one for driver of the day, which is given by the race direction, of course. So, clean driver, consistent driver, and, for example, fighting hard. Like, it can depend on so many different things. And obviously also the pole position, the second bonus point. We have 2 races, but only 1 qualifying session. So, I think it'll all be very important today to stay consistent. But, if you have a little bit of bad luck, for example, if you just get a decent drive in, if you had a decent qualifying but got turned around in the race, you still have the chance to not be completely, thrown over by your opponents.
That is very true. And there are many places here today at Watkins Glen where you do have that ability to go out there, Nico, and find overtakes and find opportunities. It's a long, high-speed style circuit, and especially crucial is that run out of the 90, the opening corner on track. Used to be the opening corner, but from the opposite direction. They used to run the clock, the track counterclockwise, the clock counter-track-wise, apparently. But at least at this point in time, they run in a clockwise variant, and they go through the 90 turn number 1, but up the S's section 2, 3, and 4. And that run up the hill towards that bus stop, I think, is probably one of the most significant runs that you're going to get all race long. And if you can mastermind that run up the hill, you can really profiteer on the ability to use slipstream today to make your passes.
Absolutely, but not just that, with the inner loop, you have such a difficult braking zone. You always don't want to compromise your line into that, very bus stop chicane that we have with the inner loop. And you want to carry a lot of momentum through there. There's a lot of different lines you can take, but even then, the 2 corners after that, outer loop and the chute, both on camber corners. So you have, like on the ovals, actually, some banking. On the chute towards the exit, the banking sort of evens out. So, very, very interesting corners, a lot of speed carried through there, and definitely a lot of possibilities to stay side by side for sure.
And one thing I think that makes this series so much different compared to everyone else is where all of the racers are finding themselves outright and looking to try and battle from, because they'll all be racing from essentially the World Pro Racing arena in Malta, and what an incredible facility that proves to be. I think it's probably the greatest esports facility out there on the European continent right now that is purely dedicated to the run of esports. I don't think that many other places in the world, of course, there are some sim racing houses where everyone gets together and has that ability to learn and operate in that environment. But to the public, I don't think there is a better sim racing facility out there on the European peninsula.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, we got a little bit of a camera tour earlier before the broadcast started. You know, we got to see a little bit what's all around there. And really, it is quite impressive what they have built up from quite literally nothing. And you know, I'm really looking forward to show all the viewers as well, you know, what this looks like. Ah, nice. We get a little sneak peek here as well. If we see our little cameraman, oh, well, not little, but, you know, we see our cameraman walking around there as well.
It really does show you just how closely defined this facility is. Everybody is there together. They're hearing every click of the pedal, every gear change up, gear change down, every little moment out there. And it's also a little bit different compared to what other people have traditionally experienced when it comes to an esport realm, because you are hearing for the first time, whereas sim racing has been largely a race on your own sim rig at home, do start to feel that pressure, anticipation. Okay, the driver next to me that I'm in an accident with potentially is right there next to me. The driver who I'm racing with is also right there and giving an absolute showcase. They are in the thralls of practice right now, but this is the time, the place where if you're going to get that practice in, you do so right now. And this is going to be probably a case of putting a couple of drivers out of the water and straight into the frying pan, essentially. This is going to be a tough challenge out there to essentially go from what you're normally prepared to race with to effectively a stock setup where absolutely everything, car, track, setup, sim rig, exactly the same.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the base of the setup is the same completely, but all the drivers are also allowed to make some adjustments of their own, you know, like if they just want a little bit, you know, a little bit of a livelier rear, you know, if they want a little bit more turning, you know, they can make these adjustments here as well. And I think it'll also really come down to the driver's skill here to get the feedback from the car, from the wheel, and put it into these adjustments that they can get, you know. It's going to be really coming down to being fully in sync with your car.
Absolutely. And to be in sync and to find that ability to go out, to push, to really monitor the experience and find those extra tenths, those extra hundredths out there on the lap. This is what the final stages then of practice, I should say, is getting into. You can just see second screen down at Simrig number 8 there, a complete look at how Assetto Corsa Competizione works with setup, and you have a much better understanding of what you can look at in terms of the data, Nico, which is there behind the wheel. How much can you really look at a car when you're driving on Assetto Corsa Competizione and say, this is what I am trying to learn and understand in the way that I'm driving?
The main things that you see is, you know, you see the tire temperatures that you actually have while driving, you know, when you reset. You see the tire pressures, and you actually see the temperature spread as well, and also how the tires wear at the end of this, you know, when you reset back to pits. And, you know, coming from those things, of course, you know, tire wear, it's not going to be that deciding factor here, simply because it's, I think, 20-minute races today. And around Watkins Glen, it's a quite long track, especially for GT cars, despite being, you know, it doesn't have too many corners, but it's such a long straights, and it's such a high-speed circuit. It's still quite long, you know, and even then, it's very important that you have the tires just perfectly on pressure. There's a lot of time for them to drop in pressure again, and I think the fluctuations around here will make it quite tricky to get into that optimum pressure window for everyone.
Yeah, and that pressure window is going to be key, and we should be seeing pretty soon how everyone is going to be getting themselves ready. We are going to be waiting on the thralls of practice then, and waiting for everybody to get themselves ready and in position as we get ourselves moving forward. So we are just waiting here, a little bit of a holding pattern right now for the next stages of racing to commence. Of course, they will have the qualifying that they'll have to deal with. And then, of course, those 2 races of 20 minutes of length shouldn't be too difficult for these drivers today. But it is going to be the first real foray into a season. And yes, it's a 12-race season, but it is also the sort of series where if you get out of shape early, Nico, in a race season like this, points are just going to be hemorrhaged left, right, and center. You have to be consistent. And I think this is a championship which prides itself on consistency more than anything else.
It's, very new territory for everyone. And I think, especially for your driver's psyche, you really want to have a good result here. You really want to set off strong. You want to show everyone else, hey, I'm the person, you really don't want to mess with. I'm the person that's the favorite for this season. And, look out for me, guys. And that's really going to be an important thing to just set the tone for the rest of the championship already, even if it is only around 1 out of 12. But it's still very important just for your own psyche and also, of course, to make that first impact on your opponents.
And I think this is probably the right time to start talking about how this sort of championship has switched away from Gran Turismo over to Assetto Corsa Competizione, the importance of that switch when it comes to motorsport and the esports. FIA Motorsport games have been one of the big keys in terms of unlocking the potential of esports. And on top of that, you could argue at exactly the same time, has been a really, really important event for saying this is where the best in the world go out there and race. And so from moving over from Gran Turismo Sport, of course, with the introduction now of Gran Turismo 7, over now into Assetto Corsa Competizione, would you say, Nico, in terms of moving to a platform that essentially gives, in my point of view, a bit closer racing, a bit more of an even keel playing field, less variation in terms of what can go wrong, and more, I would say, specification in terms of what can happen? Of course, like there was the talk, of course, of the Paul Ricard circuit, the brand new one, essentially coming into Assetto Corsa Competizione. How important is it to have that communication between the likes of the FIA and, of course, the studio behind Assetto Corsa Competizione to build together the motorsport games as essentially a...
Your voice cut off for the rest of the question there for me, but I think overall, it's in every direction, pretty much, it's a very big step forward, simply because, as a very traditional sim racer and, as an own esports driver as well, having taken part in the SRO Esports Championship now for 3 years consecutively, I think the biggest change is that you're going to a higher fidelity simulation already. Because, of course, not to badmouth Gran Turismo Sport, in the end, it is a simulation that's held back by the hardware of a console, which is, of course, more affordable. You can spread it wider and people can drive on more equal equipment, so to say. But the fidelity of the simulation just isn't quite on the same level. The level of simulation for especially dynamic weather, for example, for the tire model, it's all a lot closer to reality in Assetto Corsa Competizione. And I think that is also one of the key reasons why, the switch was done. And especially with the positive reception of the SRO Esports Championship, especially in the last year with, the series being very far-stretched, with the series this year also having very good success overall. And, you have just such a huge net of drivers that you can get your pool from for the motorsport games to represent their nations. And I think that's just one of the many points, that this switch was done. And of course, with Kuno Simulazioni also bringing a lot of new content to Assetto Corsa Competizione, showing that they are able to bring more stuff down the pipeline while also obviously developing their next titles, also made part of the switch possible.
Certainly did, and I think that it's a welcome change and one that I think certainly helps the esports scene develop, especially the sim racing scene out there in the world today. But I believe we are close to getting ourselves ready and getting a look at the drivers here who will be taking part here today for the opening 2 rounds of the season here at Watkins Glen. And in terms of just how this season is going to conduct itself, of course, we've got round 1 today here at Watkins Glen. A week from now, we'll be heading to the Nürburgring. That'll be the 2nd round of the championship. Following that, it'll be a 2-week break before Spa-Francorchamps on the 12th of August. Then the 2nd of September, another 2-week break brings Brands Hatch into play. Paul Ricard will be round 5 on the 9th of September. And then finishing Wednesday, 14th of September, this championship will head to Mount Panorama Bathurst. And that will be the end game for everyone as they take on the very tricky Public Roads Mountain over in New South Wales, Australia. But for today, it is Watkins Glen that is the challenge, and is going to be a little bit more of an interesting one in terms of how you attack, because it is a very attackable circuit. You've got these long sweeping corners, even the hairpins, for example, like the toe of the boot, for example, Nico, is the sort of place where you do need about, you know, 2nd, 3rd gear to go through and really carry the speed. All of the corners have a very open style of entry, and you're not really slowing down to the full extent of what a tight hairpin can be. So you've always got that in the back of your mind, which certainly does bring in that reality, as I believe we are, in the next couple of moments, going to be heading over towards the drivers who are going to be out there and challenging today in our opening 2 rounds of the season. So, Nico, opening 2 rounds of the season.
Sorry. Driver lineup should start, right?
Certainly should do, and I believe we're getting ourselves a little look at that. And so we'll go through. Dean Vella will be the first driver then, announced and introduced then, and someone who has been racing quite a lot when it has come to World Pro Racing, has been there on the push and getting the full works treatment then here as he takes his walk over towards his sim rig. And it's all about concentration at this point in time, and it just shows you that just how important this facility is. You've got all of the equipment, sim rigs, pedals, all of that, and he takes his sim rig and will look to get himself ready to charge forward here, Nico.
Absolutely. Dean, of course, a very experienced driver. Next, speaking of experienced drivers, number 14, Sheldon Muscat. We've seen him last week already during the qualifier for Malta that was taking part in AC1 on the Red Bull Ring. Coming around, there we are. Very tall young man, of course. I know him as well from competing against him. Big smile on his face. You know, we saw Dean with a very serious expression. Sheldon, a lot more lighthearted, you know, a very relaxed fella. And it's always, you know, very nice to just see him, you know, like very easygoing and still, you know, bringing out most of his concentration, bringing out all of the performance that he can bring.
Yeah, and performance is important, and we've seen it so many times. Andrea Rizzo will be there at number 13. Actually raced last week in terms of the Monaco Cup last time out, to move forward, to try and get some understanding of what the simulator and the rig is all about. And Andrea here is going to be looking to do exactly the same here, use that experience and a little bit of camaraderie there between the two. A little bit of chit-chat as they get themselves ready and say, hey, good luck. But Dylan De Bono up next, the 517 car out there, will be certainly looking for a good challenge over the course of the opening 2 races. Of course, this is the first time, Nico, where drivers can put their best foot forward and say, this is what I'm fighting for in this championship.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you know, again, round 1 and round 2, it's of course, you know, only the first 2 rounds of the series, but everyone's going to be very, very serious from the get-go. Kirsten Bayer, number 17, our next driver, also one that we have seen very often on World Pro Racing already, and already in other series as well. Veteran in ACC, he knows what he's doing, and very unlucky, of course, last week he's going to be trying to do a lot better this week. And of course, you know, you can see again, you know, completely different demeanor. Everyone has this sort of different swagger about them. Next up, Malta with the number 17. Very confident, the esports pose as we like to say it, with the arms crossed in front of the body. And again, completely different, smiling across both ears there, you know, very confidently walking to the sim rig. And, you know, also from all sorts of different age groups. This is the wonderful thing about sim racing.
Yeah, it really is. You get different people, different generations, everyone goes out and races. Daryl Martinelli then, number 21. Will be certainly hoping for a good run today, and it's all about confidence. So you can see as you have that walk, you walk through this very traditional Maltese building into what is something very new, and it's that fusion that we absolutely love. And it's exactly the same with sim racing. It is a fusion of the old and the new, and we certainly get that. Gianluigi Carrao, number 14, then I believe will be one of, if not the last driver out there, and we'll make us wait a little bit as he makes that very fabled walk then through into what is the World Pro Racing Arena at this point in time, where all of these drivers are going to be doing a form of battling out there, and they'll be using their skills on track to drive to the absolute limits and get themselves right up to the very front. So that will be all drivers in place then, and they will be looking to get themselves ready and waiting for opportunities then to put their start to the season in check. And such a wonderful run is going to be taking itself forward, and one driver is going to be walking out of here today with the championship lead and will be the target and the measuring stick for everybody else to go and sort themselves together. Nico, that is pretty incredible in terms of putting an opening display in front of everyone and getting an understanding of what they have to go through. It would be alien to quite a few of the drivers there to be heralded and lauded in such a stage, having all of the lights going, the smoke machines. It's not something that they would traditionally know and understand, but what they have to do now, surely you would feel, is to calm themselves down from what is an exciting stage and treat this as any other two races that they would do normally.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, this intro really has this sort of same flair, the same sort of aura as the intro that they had a couple of years back at the American Grand Prix in Austin, Texas. But, you know, from a lot of excitement, you know, like just walking to your rigs, you know, being shown off, you really put the face to the driver as well. And, you know, now they have to just get into that mindset again, get, well, quite literally into the car and, you know, shut everything else around them off. Just concentrate and now bring their best performance for qualifying.
Absolutely. Their best performance is going to be needed, and hopefully very soon we can take ourselves over to the track and get themselves in and understanding just what sort of times they'll be looking to try and go out there and achieve as they go around and battle on what is an incredibly fast opener to the championship season. But it is essentially a track which does hold a couple of cute places to go and make some moves. And one of the best places, I think, out there, Nico, in order to work out where do you get the lap time, it's going to be the heel of the boot at turn number 8 out on, sorry, I'll correct myself, turn 9 out on track. It really is an important corner because it sets up the entirety of the final 3 turns, the off-camber turn 10 and then the 2 sweepers, 11 and 12.
Yeah, not just that, you have to also, you know, you don't really notice a lot of elevation change while you're driving, other than the S's maybe, and out of the outer loop down to the chute. But you really notice when you come out of the heel, it goes steeply uphill. And so, of course, you also have to carry a good momentum again, because up the hill, gravity is going to drag you down. It's going to be more difficult to accelerate. So, as you said, off camber through the next corner, and then left and right for the last 2 corners. And yeah, I'd actually agree. The heel, really important to just set everything up to keep pressure into the tires, and actually also a very nice overtaking spot after what's pretty much, I think, the 3rd longest straight on the circuit, coming out of the toe of the boot.
Yeah, and you get that ability with that rise to really close up in behind, use the slipstream to full effect, and it gives you all of the availability and the opportunities to go out to really perform at a level where everyone feels like they're going to be comfortable doing. And these drivers are going to have slightly different levels compared to where they want to be, how quick they want to go. And it's all about managing those expectations, because this is the sort of place where if you are 4 tenths, 5 tenths, 6 tenths of a second slower here, Nico, you can stay in range thanks to the draft.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, slipstream here is one of the most important things that you can have, especially down all these long straights. You know, it's 3 longer straights, and of course, you know, the back straight, the longest one. You have the entire run from the 90, which is turn 1, and then through the S's up the hill. It's basically an entire long straight. It's all flat out, and of course, at the end there, you can get so much slipstream. I wouldn't be surprised if we see 3 wide or maybe even 4 wide coming to the inner loop there. And then, of course, these drivers will really have to watch out that everyone can stay alive, so to say, through the inner loop.
Cameras there, of course, they've got on top of that the triple screens there, the steering wheel, the pedals, the light up keyboard that's there on top of that, and they are pretty much dialed in and focused, and they'll be looking around and using all of the in-car tools that are available to them. As we get just a look in, you can see the sim racing gloves as well that are on, in terms of looking to try and understand, okay, where are the times going to come along? And you can see there, just flicking through the revs down to second, up to third, and moving on forward again. All these drivers are going to be in different parts of the track, looking to try and find that time, looking to really operate with that sense of urgency in terms of putting their best times together on the board. And I think now is the important time to just set tempo, set rhythm, show everyone what you mean, because if you can put a good time early, that's just pressure off.
Yeah, not just that, but especially around here, we mentioned it just now, slipstream. It's so important. You can get well over a half a second at least from slipstream alone here. And this is then in conjunction with, once again, GT3, a class which already highly relies on downforce through corners. And there are quite a few corners here which don't quite have the on-camber that we see through the end of that first section. Outer loop and shoot, very easy to still go alongside, very easy to follow behind. But the toe, the heel, this entire route, you really have to stay in clean air so you can actually be more comfortable around there. So it's going to be this little, chase in between whether you want to have, slipstream or you want, and you can compromise with the dirty air, or whether you want to stay completely in clean air, take all of your speed through the corners, and then sacrifice a little bit of potential pace through the straight line speed sections.
A little wiggle there going through for Dylan De Bono is not going to be the most ideal thing in the world at the end. They've got themselves about 11 minutes here of qualifying. You can see in the top right hand of your screen where everybody is looking at weather. Track temperature is 34 degrees, weather temp 26 degrees out there, so it is a very nice day out there at this point in time. Sheldon Muscat out there driving about, and it's worth noting Team WRT is the base in terms of content for team and livery as they go through, so they do have a bit of understanding, and that will be abandoned ship in terms of that lap. Kirsten Abeja currently second at the moment. 1:45.4 is the time to beat right now, but 1.2 seconds to find for Kirsten at this point, running through the bottom half of the circuit, through the lowest point on the track, and then back up the hill once again towards the heel of the boot. And these opening times are going to be okay. It is worth noting that we do have 9 drivers racing, but only 8 of them today have been able to get themselves to the arena, the World Pro Racing Arena. It is a shame that Goran Andreevski couldn't quite make there. We are hearing that work commitments have basically said that it's been a little bit difficult to make it down in time, so they have made exception for this round for Andreevski at this point in the racing procedures. But at least for this time being, Kirsten Abeja rounding the final corner. Such a difficult final corner as well, because you've got that safer barrier that sits pretty much right on the exit there. Andrea Rizzo in 4th position, and Dean Vella has just gone fastest by almost a second on a 44.5.
Yeah, you can really see a lot of people, getting used to this as well. 34 degrees as well, a very, very hot track. when you consider everything. And yeah, it's just how you say it best. It's just a definite. It's high pressure. Yeah, like the word's really not working there for me. It's such high pressure there, just getting the times in instantly. And as you said, 1:44. That's a quite long lap. Only having a 12-minute quali session, the pressure is pretty much on already.
It really is, and no pressure for Andrea Rizzo there for the brief moment that we got to see him as he runs through this very tough chicane. The curb is almost a car width wide, which is one of the ways that they use here at Watkins Glen to try and protect the circuit in some respects and to make it abundantly clear what a track limit essentially is without having to rely on what has been a case over the last month or so of being called out, without having to rely on the super large sausage curb, which can often derail a car, Nico.
Yeah, luckily it's not that prevalent over here. You have wide runoffs, you have very flat curbs overall, especially at the exit of turn 1. You can see this massive curb where a lot of people actually just run over and use large amounts of the runoff after turn 1 as well. But yeah, they tried something like the sausage curb here before already in the 70s pretty much at the S's to slow cars down through there after the fatal accident of François Sever. But after that, they basically discovered that, yeah, those curbs actually make things a lot more dangerous. 20 years after that, that knowledge pretty much got lost or something. That's why we see the curbs again everywhere. But, yeah.
Tell you what, Sheldon Muscat absolutely bouncing over the curbs there, driving through the chute, driving through the carousel, heading towards the chute on track. He was really pushing Dean Vella up through then the S's section and looking to run. You can see, of course, on the right-hand side, the track map, which shows where everybody is. And I think it's quite important that you can see 5 cars in a line out there on circuit at the moment. They'll be trying to work to get themselves best placed to find as much time as possible. Then you got the 4 other drivers out there on track who have been looking for their lap times and looking to try and run forward. Abeja currently 3rd, Rizzo in 4th. And then, of course, you've got Nigel Mifsud in 5th position. Andreevski in 6th. Dylan De Bono is there in 7th position. And following that, you do have, of course, Carrao in 8th. And Martinelli there, Daryl Martinelli, I should say, at the bottom at the moment in 9th position. But it is really tight, 4th through 9th. It's about half a second. It's just that the top 3 at this point in time are just a little stretch out of reach. They are clear at the moment, and they'll have just 6 minutes remaining here in qualifying. So at best for drivers, that's 4 laps. Most likely 2 laps they will try and take. Maybe a chance to reset back to the pits, get their tyres sorted, and get themselves back into position to go and race again.
And of course, you have to consider as well, if you just do these 2 laps, you have to also adjust the tire pressures a little bit. Because, you don't have too many corners where the tire pressures get, put up very much, where they don't rise too much. So you have to adjust it that, of course, after a couple of laps, there'll be overpressure. But for that first hot lap, that the tires will already be in the perfect operating window. And that is quite difficult to do overall. But it does give you a bit of extra time. It does give you a little bit extra traction and a little bit extra front grip, so more turn-in. And it's one of the many challenges these drivers are facing, as we see another beautiful shot of Dean Vella just running over these high curbs. You can see the car literally jumping over them. And that's always just so beautiful to see, in my opinion.
Yeah, and these Audis as well. It's quite important to talk about the way that they drive. It's a very much shorter wheelbase in comparison to most of the GT3s that is traditionally found, as Sheldon Muscat pushes the limits once again massively coming through that section of road. Of course, the long right-hander of the carousel, and you've got to be careful that you don't over push through that section of track. But one of the things that I think makes it really important, that short wheelbase, is that it does make it a little bit twitchy, and we see that again from Sheldon Muscat, just having to open the steering out going through the toe of the boot just because that car is wanting to oversteer, pivot to the inside, so a small correction needed.
Absolutely, and even though it's normal, of course, as well, in ACC to run quite aggressive toe values, so the way the corners are, we have a top-down view of the car, and whether the tires are looking to the inside or the outside. When the tires are on the front axle, you obviously want them looking to the outside, just so the inside tire is already looking into the corner a little bit more with smaller amount of steering. On the rear, you want the complete opposite. You want the tires from above, obviously, looking to the inside, to the front. And the reason for that is, if the car slides, you have a bit more natural resistance of exactly that here. So the tire itself is already pushing against that slide, so oversteer is a little bit reduced. And the obvious problem there is at high temperatures. I don't think he's running very high toe values at all. That is actually the thing that I was talking about. You have very long straights here, very high speeds. Obviously, the more toe you run, the more the tires actually rub, because obviously, normally the tires then would run out of each other the way they're facing or into each other. But of course, held on by the axles, they have to stay in place, so it's a lot of rubber just rubbing as well. And that not only increases the tire temperature, that also does decrease the top speed because of the increased resistance.
It certainly does, and at least at this point in time, those times have been crawling down further and further. Dean Vella has done a 44.2, his quickest now by nearly 7/10 of a second, but Dylan De Bono's moved to third. Kirsten DeBay has stuck in fourth. Andrea Rizzo, who we're with right now, is in fifth position at this point in time, just 2.3 seconds off of the fastest time overall, but only needs 0.5 of a second to jump Abeja and move up into fourth in this 9-car field. So an important section of time. Plus, they are starting to tick down those times overall. 2 minutes remaining on the clock, so there will still be, I believe, 2 laps available. But Andrea Rizzo moving over towards the line is going to be well within the prescribed limit to find that. And in terms of time, that was not quite enough. And there is Gianluigi Carrao moving over towards the line. And currently that last lap was a 48 flat, which was just about 0.2 of a second slower than his provisional fastest. So needs to find a 10th, and that 10th should be enough to move past Andrzejewski.
Yeah, not only that, he now has a nice little advantage there. You can see him running behind that other same liveried Audi. He'll definitely be getting slipstream right now. And if the car in front is slower than him, the guy in front actually is on an invalid lap. If he gets lucky, that guy will let him through at the end there, and then all the positives for his lap have been achieved pretty much. So no dirty after the sections where it really counts, and slipstream where you can really need it.
Slipstream where it's needed, and these drivers are all trying to find it. Andrzejewski then riding up the S's and looking to charge through at turn 4 and move to the bus stop and really try and find that little bit more. He's already jumped up to 6th position, faster than Nigel Mifsud there by almost a second. So a really strong time that last time around from Andrzejewski. And there goes the back. And there goes the final lap, just pushing a bit too hard there, Nico. And it is so easily done.
Yeah, it's incredibly unlucky there. You're pushing on the limit. And especially into that corner, you come in at such a high speed. If the rear end isn't completely settled coming in there, then even the banking can't save you. The outside tires just get overloaded, slip away, and, around you go. Tried to counter-steer it as well, and sadly wasn't quite able to catch it. The tank stopper came immediately, and Sheldon Muscat finishing his qualifying session here a little bit disappointed, visibly. Not quite able to reach Dean Vella, 7/10 between them. And, De Bono also pulling over very quickly.
Yeah, I think Sheldon Muscat wasn't quite happy because he just got the checkered flag as he crossed the line. I think he wanted that extra lap, but he didn't get across the line in time. There is Nigel Mifsud trying to find the lap time at this point. Carrao remains 9th fast for that time. Only Mifsud and Dylan Martinelli Daryl Martinelli, are out there on track, and Daryl Martinelli will be trying to get through and find that time. Mifsud running through then down at the toe of the boot and trying to find that line. Staying away from the curb, though. It's one of the few corners, Nico, where you do have that camber to help you.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you get onto the inside curb, actually, it slightly puts you off camber because it is actually one of the higher curbs around this track. So it's a classic case of minimize the distance you need to travel, get as close as possible, but not onto it. So really, really difficult, of course. You can see the focus here in his eyes. And now coming to the last corner, into the last two corners, actually. Onto the outside curb perfectly to the maximum. And good turning, but gets a little bit too wide and hits the outside wall there. So easily done.
Oh, you can see the disappointment there. That looked like it was going to be a good lap time, but that final tap doing just enough. So ultimately, it is pole position for Dean Vella, and that will be excitement in terms of the opening race then going through. And it was a confident qualifying, never really was pushed within 0.2 of a second, which, okay, yes, is a close margin out there, Nico, but how crucial is it that you are able to build upon those laps, use the strength of that tyre and getting it up to speed? It takes a couple laps for the tyre to warm up properly, and once it was in the right operating window, it was a case of, well, time to fly.
That's the difficult part here, you know, especially in Watkins Glen, pretty much every single corner you can go side by side through them. There's no single corner section like on the Nordschleife, for example, where it's like, well, I have to wait a little bit now. I have to stay close, hold my attacks for now, and then I'm going to make a move at a section where I can attack. There's not a single section like that here. You can attack everywhere. And knowing Sheldon Muscat, he will attack at the very beginning. He definitely wants to be there straight from the get-go. He knows that he has some pace deficit to Dean Vella, but Dean Vella, knowing him as well, he is aware of that. Of course, he will try to get away as quickly as possible, and it'll be, well, both of them will drive offensively, and Dean Vella, additional to that, has to drive defensively at the beginning to just get properly, into his window as well, stay ahead of Sheldon Muscat, and of course, both of them can't really afford to go off the racing line at the beginning there and get into the marbles, for example, as well.
Yeah, they can't afford to get into troubles early. And they should be looking for an opportunity then to drive forward to really make sure that in terms of their laps, in terms of their times, they are going to be looking at this first 20-minute race, and they are going to try and really push on with how crucial the times have been and how crucial the racing laps are going to be in terms of how this race is constructed. Now, when you're doing a race like this, it's 20 minutes. How do you break it up in terms of a race? Do you think about it, Nico, as a start, a middle, and an end? Do you chunk it up in sort of 5-minute intervals, or do you just see it as a 20-minute race where you've got to go out there, you've got to go, and you've got to attack?
I think it's really always separated, whether it's a 20-minute race or a 1-hour race. It's always separated into, the first half, the second half, pretty much. First half, you really just have to attack. In the case if you start further back, you have to attack from the get-go. You have to establish your position, get the tires in temp, and the last half of it, generally speaking, I'd say is always the part where you look after tires. In 20 minutes, not so much. You basically just attack all the way through, but it's always this halfway point. It's sort of relaxing when you're past it. You can basically go, okay, halfway done, halfway there, then we can focus on the finish.
Yeah, that focus on the finish, I think, is going to be really, really crucial in terms of today, because you've got that ability to overtake. Seemingly, at any given moment, it's not going to be a straightforward conclusion. You are going to have to guard multiple places on a lap in order to bring home some important places, and especially with how tight it was in the mid-pack, really, here, Nico. How crucial is that mid-pack scrap going to be? Because those positions, they might not mean much on paper to some drivers, but to other drivers, they will mean everything.
Yeah, I think especially when you have the first two guys, Dean and Sheldon, they're a little bit separated from the others. But behind that, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, they are quite close together, you know, and I think especially just staying consistent, staying out of trouble will really decide on these points. You mentioned at the very beginning this 15 and 10 point position for P3 and P4. It's going to be so important simply because those positions are going to be very, very coveted for the rest of the drivers, just getting these extra points in these two races here.
They certainly are, and of course they are coveted live with TVM Sport, with motorsport.tv, with ESTV, and of course on Facebook and on YouTube with World Pro Racing via the likes of Enemed and many other amazing places. Wherever you find your racing, wherever you find World Pro Racing, it's a pleasure to have you along for the ride. It's a pleasure to bring you coverage of the multinational GT3 Esports Championship 2022, fueled by Enemed Racing on the Assetto Corsa Competizione in conjunction with the Malta Motorsport Federation. So there is that they are all trying to get themselves in racing, and crucially organised racing on top of that. I think it's been really cool. It's been really fantastic to see. But now it's about focus. They've got themselves into a position where they've put their qualifying effort in. Now it's about getting to the race, getting through 20 minutes, changing that mindset from one lap, hot lap, to consistency drive. And how does that essence of going from being a hot lap style driver, Nico, to a driver who's out there racing and fighting for positions, what changes in a driver's mind when they effectively are presented with the challenge of other drivers around them?
Well, as you said, a hot lap, you have to be alone, you have to maximize the potential of the car. The biggest real change for a sprint race here is, you know, you have to get the maximum performance out of the car, you have to stay on top of things, but with other drivers around you. So you have to be able to get the maximum out of the car while maybe not on the racing line. You have to be able to adjust your line. You have to be able to adjust your braking points and just take into account what could happen if it gets a little bit too close, especially in these extreme situations, wheel-to-wheel racing, side by side here. In a lot of these high-speed corners, you have to know when to make what input to actually catch a slide and not have a tank slapper like we saw just now in qualifying. It's really all about being on top of things and being laser focused, and not just on the track and your car, but also your surroundings. So it's a lot more stressful being in the race than just being in qualifying.
It certainly is, and I'm sure that we're going to find that out the longer that racing goes. I do believe we are going to get a chance now to have a bit of a conversation with Jonathan Tanar out there at this moment in time. So I think that's going to be something really cool that we're going to be getting an opportunity to do in the next couple of moments. So we will just see whether we are getting to that or not at this point in time. But I have to say, Justin here is stood by with Jonathan Tanar. Justin Mistard here, of course, from World Pro Racing.
Can you hear me?
I believe we do have sound now
yes,
here. So, Justin,
yes.
I believe you are stood here with Jonathan Tanar.
Yes, for a change, another technical issue. Well, welcome, Jake, to this event, actually the second season of the National Championship, and hopefully you're enjoying it. So far, we are. I'm hearing myself double. So, next to me, we have Jonathan Tonna, who is the team captain in the Motorsport Federation, Malta Motorsport Federation, where he goes with the winner of this championship and also with the real drivers in the world of motorsport. But I let Jonathan tell us exactly what he's been doing so far in the world of motorsport. I know him quite well, but I leave it up to him. Tell us, first of all, about this event in esports. Were you ever skeptic about it, or after seeing all these races?
First of all, I would like to congratulate you on this wonderful setup. It's really professional. I'm not that tech advanced, but seeing all this, it's something incredible. And congratulations to all your team. Now, I'm taking care of the FIA games as a team captain for Malta. And it's going to happen between the 26th and 30th October. There are obviously different categories of motorsport, and one of them is esport, which is recognized by the FIA as being a motorsport event as well. So basically, this is the start of the championship, as you well explained. The champion, the winner, will accompany me and other drivers to Marseille in October.
I'm sure they're going to love it. Unfortunately, last year, the winner, Mikhail Mercia, couldn't go to the event, unfortunately because of COVID, not because of him not wanting to go there. I'm sure that he wanted to go. But as Jonathan said, we Maltese have a lot of potential, and there are people out there that they have potential that not even themselves they know about this. And they're afraid of going out there because it's esports. People are watching them, the internet is toxic, but we, as World Pro Racing, in collaboration with the MMF, we are pushing a lot in this, especially from children at a young age. Apart from that, Jonathan is, as I said, the team captain in the real world of motorsport, where there we have a lot of talent, where you need to be aware because there's the fear of death there. Not the same as here. So tell us from your experience.
Basically, esports opens a wide range for a wide range of people. For me, it's also a start. You can start from here, or you can train here. You can get much experience. We had drivers in the past, Maltese drivers, which used to take part in Formula 4. They used to train on these types of simulators. But basically, the FIA games is from GT4, it's a rally, it's all the motorsport except hill climbing. Because hill climbing, then they make a special event, which is called the FIA Hill Climb Masters. That will happen next year, hopefully. So this year, FIA games in Marseille, 26-30th October. Next year, we don't know where yet. I have some suspect, but we don't know yet where the Masters, the Hill Climb Masters will happen.
He will tell us when we go offline, don't worry, and he will tell you after. Well, I saw somewhere around Adrian. Adrian and Jonathan know quite well each other, and you can come next to me. Adrian has been monitoring the whole race, and I think Jonathan was also watching what was happening around. And this is something that we are pushing, where we are teaching. We want to teach actually and train drivers or anybody else who would like to get into the world of motorsport through marshalling. Without marshalling, motorsport wouldn't even be existing. So Adrian is our race director in virtually and also stewarding in the real life world of motorsport. So from your experience today, practice, qualifying and the real world of motorsport, where this weekend you are at the karting track in La Reve as well.
Yes, from what I've seen, obviously, I think we're going to have two groups of drivers today. If I can see, even with the times that qualifying happened, but obviously enough during a race, anything can happen. Hopefully, no major incidents that we need to intervene in. But I made it clear also in the briefing, so that they actually take care of each other. We have drivers who actually we know and they drive clean. We have some new drivers also, which we've seen, and I think from what I've seen till now, they are clean drivers also. So I think we're going to see an enjoyable race. As you said, now, after tonight, then tomorrow morning, a weekend of karting, at La Reve track, stewarding there. So motorsport, 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 motorsport.
It's quite hectic, as you can see, and if you have been here, watching behind the scenes, please don't talk to me, because I was so crazy going around. But that's what happens in esports, the same as traditional broadcasting, which we love doing that because we're promoting those guys out there who are one of them will be representing our country, but they're still, all of them are representing the country right now. They are pushing to do their best to representing our country. We've got 8 minutes remaining, so I leave it up to Jake and Nicholas, unless they have any questions to ask to Adrian or Jonathan. Maybe you have any question to ask to them.
I will hand over to Nico first, see if he's got anything that he wants to ask. I know I've got a couple things, but I'll give Nico the floor first.
I actually don't have any questions, funnily enough, because, quite informative, really fun to see all the different faces also involved in this, and yeah, just looking forward to get along with the races now.
Great.
I will then go forward then and bring my question. I'll bring my question to Jonathan first. And to Jonathan then, in terms of how you approach esports as a concept, as an entity, coming from the real world, moving over, seeing how wonderful esports is, do you see this as a platform not only as great in terms of potential for esports to grow, but also for motorsports to grow as a new avenue to train brand new drivers in and to get more people involved in motorsport as a whole?
Yes, of course, it is. It can be a start, or it's still a type of motorsport for me. It's different because it's virtual, but it's good for training. I tell you, from experience, the people who have a simulator at home or come to these kind of places, they all do a good job when we come in the real races. So it's combined. Esports must grow. And it's opening the doors for many other people and many other drivers and many young people. So basically, for me, it's a start.
It's certainly a start. And where do you see the development of motorsport in Malta going in the next 3 years, 5 years or so?
In the next 3 to 5 years, we'll have our own track, hopefully. So it will be a big step for us forward. Because Malta, we don't have a real motorsport track. We do have a karting track. In fact, tomorrow is the start of the championship of the karting, the 4th round, actually. And some 8 drivers will accompany me as together with the sports driver to the FIA games, as I already explained.
Wonderful. And if I could just ask a question as well to Adrian as well, because I know he's got a very busy job moving forward in all of the work that's going on. Adrian, we've had the ability to work for a couple of years together now, and the understanding of the work that you do behind the scenes, it's obviously a thankless task going out there, doing race control, getting everything together, but in terms of building that future and trying to find opportunities for people in motorsport that isn't just necessarily just being a driver or being backed by cash, for example, how crucial has it been in terms of your development and your motorsport journey to move forward and see just how incredible the teams have been, the drivers have been, the stewarding panels have been, in terms of building motorsport up to be something incredible as the drivers behind you have just got back into sim?
Yeah, it is something that naturally, I think it's important that you have the target to arrive there. Once you set the target, you'll manage to arrive. Obviously enough, as Jonathan also said, it's like this is a start for something, and obviously enough, it's a good start for a platform for motorsport. So yes, ambition, and you get there. So anybody can do it. It's something that I pass myself also. So I think it's a good thing to do, and this is a great start. So I'll pass it on to you, so that now very soon the race will kick off.
Absolutely. Adrian Fagaya there. Jonathan Tanar as well from the Malta Motorsport Federation, and some wonderful work that has been done and has been conducted. Nico, drivers will be now getting themselves ready here in terms of racing action and in terms of getting themselves sorted and ready. They know this first race of 20 minutes is coming up. This is their first chance to go out there and set a tempo, to set a rhythm, to say this is what we want to do as a driver, as an opportunity that comes along. And yes, they are all representing Malta, but they do have to take that out of their head for a moment and say this is just like any other sim race that they have done before. Their goal is very simple: finish position number 1. How they do that? Drive clean, drive fast, make the overtakes if they need to.
Yeah, and that's the thing, just it's so easy to say, but around here, where you're constantly at high speeds, managing the temperature, especially at a very hot track of 34 degrees, it's going to be difficult. And especially in dirty air where the car just behaves slightly different, having to go into marbles, then the tires behave slightly different because they're dirty. I think it's going to be a very interesting race here just to see who can adapt the best, who can actually, just stay calm in the face of, not of danger, but, of facing everyone else and, who can coordinate his car the best.
I tell you one thing I do love about sim racing more than I do actual racing is that you do get that opportunity to see just how people react in certain situations in the moment. I always remember the Visa Vegas E-Race as one of the first real views of that. And I believe it was Graham Carroll who ended up in contact with someone else. It might have been Ollie Packler, it might have been someone else. It was just a hand up. It was, what are you doing? And just that look and that understanding of a sim racer's reaction, a driver's reaction in the moment, in the heat of battle. Surely that ability, that emotion comes through a lot more in sim racing than it would do, say, when you're hidden behind a helmet and you've got that to deal with, Nico.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've also seen some onboard cameras before from a friend of mine when he got crashed out in a GT3 race. It's very much a similar reaction. You can very much hear it audibly when all of a sudden the engine is cut out and a lot of expletives are being said, because obviously you also have quite a lot of different adrenaline because of, more physical impact. You're also in pain potentially and all that. But in here, you're under a lot of adrenaline, simply just you're racing, you're completely focused on that, and all of a sudden there's just this unpredictable factor in there. You get hit or something doesn't go as planned, and you're just going, why is this happening now? And you just can't help but hide. You can't hide your face unless you're Daniel Abt. It's on the camera. Everyone sees what you look like and how you react. And I think in most series nowadays, where they just broadcast these webcams as well, I think it's always a very funny little cut in, to see how the drivers are actually reacting to it.
Certainly has been. Very quickly though, because we're just about to go to the race. Who's your pick?
Oh, that's difficult. I'd say Sheldon Muscat has very good overall, just racecraft and stuff, if he doesn't get unlucky. And Dean Vella, also, incredibly fast, probably the fastest guy here today. And I think it's going to be, whether he can keep it consistent today.
Here's the roar of the engine then, from a driver's eyes perspective. This is how Dean Vella sees it coming off of the grid then. And looking to gear up on what is this formation lap here around this Watkins Glen circuit. It is worth talking about the track has cooled slightly from the earlier conditions in qualifying, down by about 2 degrees overall. So it looks like for Dean Vella at least he's got a cooler track to deal with on his 20 minutes worth of racing moving forward. And this is probably the most critical point of racing that they will have going around on this circuit, Nico, because they do have to try and warm up those tyres, get them as quickly as possible into an operating window, because that window will not close, or it will be a lot tougher to open if they are unable to get those tyres up to the right window to go out and attack the opening couple of laps.
Absolutely. Not only that, actually hitting curbs, if you have under pressure tyres, very, very dangerous thing to do, and very unpleasant thing to do as well, because you could get a slow puncture and pressure loss around here when you really use every little PSI, every fraction of a PSI you can get. Very, very difficult. You can see people weave slightly, just a little bit. They don't want to wear the tires too much. Other than that, a lot of actual brake dragging, getting the brake temperatures up, and with the hotter brakes actually getting the heat into the tires through the rim, so basically getting the tire heat from the inside instead of from the weaving from the outside, so to say.
That will be another thing to keep in mind, those brake temperatures as well, because there are so many long straights. Those brakes effectively get a heavy burst of energy that goes through them to slow the car down, and then a long time to cool back off before they have to be really attacked open once again on the brakes they go through. Now they head through the back half section of the circuit, through the boot parts they go through. Essentially now heading towards that toe of the boot, which indicates the second half of the lap. And this right hand, you can see the scenic grass route they go through. Dylan De Bono there in third position, Kirsten Abeja in fourth. What do those drivers have to do very quickly, Nico, in terms of making good progress off of their start?
Well, they will have to get right on the trigger, so to say. As soon as the green drops, they have to be perfectly on there, have to be perfectly in position, because obviously you can get very quickly a penalty here for being out of position during the start. You have to be spot on, but not too far forward, and of course, you know, be in the right gear, be at the right revs, and just have the perfect moment, you know, basically just drop the throttle as soon as you can when it goes to green. But yeah, these guys will have to get laser focused now. They'll have to stay absolutely calm, of course, have to completely calm their nerves, focus everything up. You can see them accelerating now, because they quickly have to form up into this double file formation. Luckily, we only have 9 drivers, so there's not a huge train of cars having to catch up all of a sudden. So, you know, everyone is in position now, and I'm going to leave it to you for the start.
Yeah, they will be at limit, and they will be keeping in mind how quickly they need to be as they go around. There will be a penalty if they exceed that before the green flag drops from this point onwards, so they do have to be very cautious about this. But it is the first round of an all-important season, the multinational GT3 Esports Championship. It starts right now, green flag, and we're underway for 20 minutes worth of action. Vela having to cover immediately on the inside, gets a nice start. Muscat trying to go to the outside. De Bono defending as well in third position. Abeja doing well. Bit of side-by-side as well in the middle as Andreevski and Nigel Mifsud have a fight for 6th position, but it is side-by-side up the S's section for 3rd position for the first time. It looks like De Bono has done enough to hold it off, and there's trouble in the background. One going around, I believe that's Corral, who's in trouble there at the back, so immediately dramas in the back as Jean-Luigi Corral is caught out in a little bit of trouble, and maybe Martinelli has been involved as well.
Yeah, very unlucky. It's insanely fast there, of course. And then all of a sudden, the walls come closer to the track. If you hit a curb there, you know, like, you can just get very quickly distracted. And Corral really unlucky there, having taken the brunt of the impact. And I think Andreevski getting away with just spinning around. And, you know, obviously, tires slightly short. I'd absolutely take that over the amount of bodywork damage, though, that Corral has right now.
Looks more like a Chevrolet right now than an Audi, the way that the bonnet's been pushed up a little bit, and that is heavy damage. And that surely for Corral is almost an impossible job to get that car back to the pits. But that is the crucial matter of fact. Get it back to the pits, and you might still have a chance to score a couple more points if other dramas come about. Great scrapping going on, 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th positions. Nigel Mifsud's on the back of this group, and we'll be looking to try and challenge forward with the likes then of Ritzer just in front. Abeja, Dylan De Bono in 3rd position. Top 2 have checked out at the front of the field. It's Vela and Muscat who lead this one, and there's a look at Nigel Mifsud, who has to try and stay on to the back of this group at 9/10 of a second back. Is a little bit close for comfort at this point in time. You're really trying to open out the opening opportunities, but you can see just going through the 90, it's a little bit tentative, and suddenly that gap becomes very difficult to hold on to as they run up through the S's section. Turn 3, the very difficult one. It's very easy to clip that outside wall as you try and carry too much speed.
Yeah, you can see him slowly close up on the car ahead, though, like very, very slowly creeping closer. That is the slipstream that is coming up the hill. And now a better run there, a lot better run on Rizzo through the inner loop into the outer loop there, right on the tail of Rizzo, and obviously now having to manage around that car, not being able to see you right in front of him, and yeah. Now the next move will be obviously how do I get past as quickly as possible.
Catching's one thing, passing is another. The late Murray Walker would always say and talk about that. Very deep on the brakes then, into the toe of the boot, trying to recover back. There is Dylan De Bono's view at this point in time as he sits in third position. But that gap really has opened out over 2 seconds at this point. And the top two having their own race. There is Jean-Louis Corral in the pits at this point in time. And that would be 9th position if it is to stay like this. And crucially, keep an eye out on in-sim time, because it's coming up towards 4:30 in the afternoon in-sim time, which means this track here, Nico, is only going to get colder as the race goes on.
Yeah, absolutely. The sun is slowly setting, so the heat is not coming directly from above anymore. So slowly and slowly, it's going to cool down, which is going to be, you know, very beneficial for all the drivers involved here, quite honestly. Vela is honestly like slowly gaining away from Muscat, so Muscat kind of missed his opportunity to attack. I think now it's down to a fight of, you know, who's the most consistent and who makes mistakes, because Vela, of course, we saw he attacks those curbs quite hard. You can see here the car jumping over the curbs, and yeah, he just really has to keep everything together now, and otherwise just keep up the pace as he has had it so far.
Yeah, and he certainly has driven almost flawlessly, and he's been driving stoically as well. There's nothing really too out of place with the way he drives. Everything looks like it's in place, it's in point, it's in position. It is very much a metronomic style of driving, and I do like that in terms of everything feels and looks and should be the same, and it is with the way that Dean Vela drives. At least at this point in time, battle on for what is 5th and 6th positions, because Andrea Rizzo, Nigel Nifson in the background, very nearly looping it around on acceleration from the toe of the boot. And that could have very easily have been a whole world of disaster there. But the crucial matter of fact is, was able to catch the slide and is able to keep that race going. Has cost a second, but 1 second here doesn't matter early. It matters later on in the race when those 1 seconds count.
Yeah, not only that, it's also a thing, you know, with Stewart's incidents, we can get penalties here, of course. We have live race director Adrian Figaio here on site, and he, of course, will also have a look at incidents, maybe also at the start incident there. Like, what actually happened there? Because we only saw the tail end of that, pretty much. We only saw the 2 cars going around and going into the wall, so still not quite clear what happened there, and wondering if something will come out of that, because we will definitely have to have a look there. If maybe there's a penalty there, then staying within that 5 second, 10 second, 15 second window can get you another free position.
And there is a live look at the steward's room and all of the data and information that they have to work with at this point in time. It is a very, very important look that they have as they go around, and they will have cameras and eyes and availabilities that, of course, we here and you, of course, at home do not have the privilege of seeing, and that, of course, gives them a whole heap of a lot of information that they can work with. There is Dylan De Bono in 3rd position, holding off Kirsten De Beher at this moment in 4th, and just slowly opening out that gap 10th by 10th, and so too is Dean Vela at this point in time. That gap is up to 3.5 seconds. And I would say about a year ago, a year and a half ago, I would have put Sheldon Muscat as the stronger driver, as the better driver in comparison to Dean Vela. It just shows you how much Dean has developed as a driver over the last year and a half here, Nico, that he has got onto an equal plane to Sheldon Muscat, and you would say is flying here today at Watkins Glen.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Dean is another example of someone who maybe started a little bit later, but then as soon as he found his rhythm, you know, never really stopped. He just kept going, kept pushing, and, well, the fruits of his effort we see now, 3.5 seconds in the lead, and honestly, it's just wonderful to see that growth over such a long time, you know? Just seeing him basically in his first races here, pretty much like 2 years ago now, I believe, back in RF2 or even like in ACC back then. But yeah, that's not to say that Sheldon Muscat has gotten slower. He's pretty much kept up his same form as well. It's just, you know, Dean has quite developed, and it can also just be a little bit of more preference with a certain simulator. It can also be more preference with a certain car.
Yeah, and of course, there are going to be certain cars out there that certain that actually improve someone's driving style or suit someone's driving style compared to someone else. And I think that's really crucial here in terms of the way that Sheldon Muscat's going to go about, because driving around in this Audi R8 LMS Evo 2 might not be his cup of tea compared to maybe a different car out there on a Assetto Corsa Competizione, for example. It is a very different skill set to have, jumping into a specific type of car out there that gives you all of what you need. So that's going to be worth keeping in mind. Kirsten Beher, currently in 4th position, is still having to keep the power on and has to keep driving because effectively the carrot's on a stick, 1.8 seconds, and there is Andrzejewski in trouble and in the wall at the chute. So looks like Andrzejewski's first race has ended in grief.
Yeah, really unlucky. He was the second car involved at the start crash and are probably pushing very, very hard to catch up to Martinelli. And, you know, as we said here, you know, such a high-speed circuit, push a little bit too hard and you'll find yourself in the wall very, very quickly. And for Andrzejewski, for the first race, sadly, it seems to have ended that way.
It is a shame, but there are still 11 races over the course of the season, and there is just a little look on how a few of the fans are able to watch that here at the World Pro Racing Arena. They have that opportunity to go through, and hey, look, infinite screens. You can see all the way through now as they go through it. Oh, one of the cutest dogs I think I've ever seen as well. Got everything and a bit more here with World Pro Racing. You even get wildlife to go and have a little bit of a look at as well. Fantastic here for this opening race. Kirsten Beher still in 4th position, but that gap is closing. Andrea Rizzo is driving the cotton socks off of the machine at the moment. He's got that gap down to 1.3 seconds, and suddenly Kirsten's going to be in a little bit of a fight right now. I think you can see it in the whites of the eyes there, Nico, how close it is, unless Andrea Rizzo takes absolutely everything out of the chute and does skirt across the grass a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Andrea is really pushing to get into the tricky section here. The toe, of course, losing all of its on-camber and going slightly off-camber at the corner exit. And he's really pushing hard to just try and close that 1.8 seconds down to 1 second, because that is pretty much around the area when slipstream starts picking up. And, you know, basically, if you are within 1 second of the car in front, as another slide, you know, out of an off-camber corner exit, you can really get something done just in that first section up to the inner loop.
Would you say that Andrea was just trying to push a little bit too hard, seeing Kirsten Beher and that gap closed, and really it's that sort of time where you make a mistake, you try and compensate by pushing a little bit harder, and again the mistake comes in?
Yeah, it's absolutely say so, and especially with these slides, it's of course tricky. You don't really have any slow corners here where you can, you know, bring the tire temperatures further back down again, and you basically always have to attack around here. So the tire temperatures are going to be quite high right now for him, and actually getting those down will be rather difficult, I'd say.
Well, there is your race leader, Dean Vella, and is clear by 5.5 seconds at this point in time. You can also see Dean Vella has the purple check mark next to his name on the timing tower with the number 1. That will indicate that Dean has the fastest lap of the race here, which of course gives you 1 extra bonus championship point, and that could be very vital between now and the end of the season. There is Sheldon Muscat in 2nd position, and it's almost a case of no man's land at this point in time. 5.5 seconds in front, 6 seconds behind. It's effectively a lonely race at the moment for Sheldon Muscat, and can only keep plugging on forward for the remaining 8 minutes.
Yeah, he's in the void, as some of my friends like to say. And the tricky part about that is pretty much you don't have anyone in front of you, you don't have anyone immediately behind you. So to keep pushing at a good pace without, you know, just getting lost in it, because all of a sudden you just lose focus, you can just overcook it and crash. Very, very unlucky. And we see the parked car of Gianluigi Corrao here, who has actually left the rig for now, taking a bit of a breather, I suppose, before the second race.
Yeah, well, car's broken, no point to stay in the seat, I suppose, and that then will be a case of just trying to psych yourself back up the next racing. There is Daryl Martinelli, of course, Alessandro here in Assetto Corsa Competizione, and driving around in 7th position. Yes, that gap is a little bit large. You can see on the map that is behind by an entire corner going into the 90 at this point in time. But that's not the end of the world right now in terms of this race. I would rather be 10 seconds off the pace and driving in last position going forward than pushing forward. And I believe we have found Gianluigi Corral, and that is up at the steward's office.
Yeah, actually, I think he's got a bit of a better look of the racing situation going on there. So, you know, even when out of race, I think a lot of guys are still very, very interested to see how the rest of the race is going, how it's going for the other drivers, and obviously if there's some racing action to enjoy. So, you know, it's quite nice to have that little shot there of him, you know, sitting there. Because honestly, I think first of all, if I was out of the race for the second race, I'd just instantly get something to drink, you know, collect myself. He's just trying to stay in the racing mindset, and that's definitely a good run into the second race as well.
Yeah, and especially into the second race, you'd certainly take the points right now. Dylan De Bono's proving that right now in 3rd position, is driving a very, very lovely race. The gap now 6 seconds for him over to Kirsten Abeja in 4th position. So Dylan just quietly pottering about, doing the right things at this point in time as we head towards the final quarter of the race out there on track. In 3rd position, hasn't really done too much to get the attention since going side by side in the opening lap. And I think it was crucial really for Dylan to get on that opening lap through and ahead in the early stages. It really set the tempo for get the head down, I held my position, and look at this, how about that? Take a drink, why don't we? As we get ourselves ready for the next racing. Andrzejewski then just getting calm and situated for the next race going forward, and maybe has a chance to get back out, but I doubt that there'll be much more point to going out there, because we are going to be within 3 laps to go there or thereabouts soon with Dean Vella driving, and I doubt we're going to see too much of incident between now and the end of this race.
Yeah, and I mean, it's all about just staying consistent now. It's the last couple of laps, pretty much 3 laps to go, I would say, when he crosses the line. And I'd say pretty much Dean has this in the back. Sheldon really needed to attack at the beginning to be able to take the fight to him, but yeah, Dean defended it quite well. Left him enough space as well, so, you know, no one's going to complain then. I don't think that Sheldon is the guy to complain. And yeah, just drive home now, enjoy the first victory, and instantly get into the mindset for the next race in the short break that we have after this.
Yeah, and getting into that mindset, a small break to get themselves sorted once again. Some drivers really work well on rhythm and just getting in next race, next race, next race. And once you find a groove, you try and stay there. And it might be something rather similar out there for certain drivers out on track. What this could also be in terms of the final stages of this race is that some drivers might try to absolutely push no matter how far down they are, because they want to do one of two things here, Nico. They want to either A, show that they have the ability to go out there and attack and get closer, as Andrea Rizzo gets within 1.3 seconds once again, moving through the 90. You can see how much curb they use coming out of the opening 90-degree right-hand corner as they crest the rise. The other thing they want to do, aside from going out there and proving they can get those extra positions, is maybe go for fastest lap if they possibly can.
I mean, yeah, that would also be another effort, I'd say, but obviously, you know, fastest lap isn't quite the same as driver of the day that we can get. I think right now, you know, it's just to keep the consistency up, you know. Obviously, from the results file, we can extract who has the highest consistency, who has the least deviation from his normal average pace. And, of course, for example, you know, highest climb as well. If you gained a couple positions and then kept that position, or if you fought very cleanly and kept that up until the end of the race, that's going to be a very good chance for you as well to actually get driver of the day as well. And that extra point may be worth more than, you know, just the fastest lap of the race.
Certainly will. I wouldn't count Nigel Misted out either in the battle for 4th, 5th and 6th, because if the 4th and 5th place positioned drivers do run into troubles, that is the perfect gap, about 3.5 seconds, to go and pounce on any mistake that happens. Andrea Rizzo right now driving through turn 10, looking for 11 and 12. The final corners out on circuit. The sweeping left, followed by the then sweeping 90-degree right-hander. Pit entry on the inside is always the most difficult out there, but they won't have to deal with pitting today. Andrea Rizzo, you can see there the big shake of disappointment on his head after making heavy contact with that safer barrier out of the final corner.
Yeah, it's called safer barrier because it's safer than a normal concrete barrier, but it's definitely not safe to touch that hard. And well, not only does it kill momentum, it also does destroy you know, your suspension and also your aerodynamics pieces quite efficiently if you touch it that hard. So Castaway are obviously going to be looking still at the delta there, quite scared, and especially with Rizzo now actually having caught up again. You know, 1.7 seconds back up to 1.2 seconds, you know.
And most of the... sorry to cut in there. Most of that was actually down to the fact that Kirsten Nebeja had a huge wiggle through the opening corner. That opened up the opportunity then, despite the contact for Andrea Rizzo, to close that down. Now, they're not on the final lap of this race. They will have one lap after this, just by how quick Dean Vella's been driving up at the front of the field. But at least at this moment in time, they will know that that race is far from over. There is your race leader right now. He will have one lap to go here at the line. And effectively here on what has been an incredible Friday night's worth of racing, he's been driving as if nothing has been out of the ordinary. This has been as patient gets, as Andrea Rizzo remains close and for the first time is about to claw within a second.
Yeah, I mean, Dean Vella, he's just basically been quite relaxed, I think. He's been basically the rule of cool, just staying relaxed and building his gap. And meanwhile, everyone else behind him is slowly scrapping away. And yeah, I'd say, you know, definitely the drive of the day so far. Second race is, of course, still coming, and the drive of the day is coming from both of those races. So we also have to look for the battle of P4 again here, because Castaway and Andrea Rizzo closer than ever before. And now the question is, what damage is bigger? The damage to Castaway's tires from sliding, or the damage to Andrea Rizzo's car from the, I think, 2 or 3 contacts that he had with the outside wall in the last corner?
Yeah, those are going to be the cases. There's Dylan De Bono in 3rd position. Just getting a look then down through the chute. This is quite crucial to see. That damage on lap 1, you can see all of the signage boards plastered around the circuit there. And there's no Brave Marshal here in Assetto Corsa Competizione to effectively extricate that from the track. But there is still so much more that can happen in these races. It's only the first or second. The timer has expired then in this race. This is the final lap, and Dean Vella, who rounds through turn 11 and will head to turn 12, has not put a foot wrong, has proven he's got ultimate pace, and this is going to be, coming to the checkered flag, 1 of 1 and the perfect start to the season. Dean Vella takes victory in race 1 here of your GT3 Championship. Some brilliant national championship driving from Vella. It will be second for Sheldon Muscat, and Dylan De Bono will come to the line in 3rd. But the battle for 4th looks like it has really hotted up, and it is going to get really, really close here in the final stages. You can see the flares already lighting up, but Kirsten Nebeja, you can see a sigh of relief, was able to hold on to that 4th place.
And the last sector, maybe a little bit too much of a slide from Andrea Rizzo, so that he could make a hard effort there. But really, in those last laps, he definitely closed up quite a lot. And Castaway, you could see him wiping sweat away there. And quite honestly, I don't blame him at all.
It's a very intensive race here at Watkins Glen, especially if you've been under the cosh and having a little bit of a search about trying to defend out there on track. But there is your winner, Dean Vella, picking it up, getting it done. 9.9 seconds, the margin over 12 laps, which is about 6 or 7 tenths of a second each lap to go and pick up what was a wonderful result. And there he is, just, you know, everything is as it should be. Nice and calm. Get yourself a little look, get the bottle of water, And a champion strength for a champion style drive there. That was an important first race to get under the books.
Absolutely. And I mentioned this way before the first race. You really want to put up a good display here. You really want to cement yourself as one of the favorites. And I think, well, he definitely has done an absolutely excellent job there. And it's definitely going to be in the head of his opponents now. You know, we have to take care of Dean at the start if possible. Obviously not in a crashy way, but more in a very aggressive, maybe lunge on the inside way.
Yeah, and has certainly proven that was a good run in the early stages, and you can't really ask for too much more than that in terms of an opening display of action there. And pretty much that is what you would call the perfect start to the championship outright. So there will be a little bit of work to do. There will still be a second race coming up, and the thumbs up certainly there saying, yeah, that was good. That was fun. That was everything that was certainly needed to be in terms of racing action. But Nico, they will have one more race to tackle after this. And when you see that, a gap of 9-10 seconds over 12 laps, how do you react to that? How can you respond to that? Where do you look at that in terms of the environment that they're in and say, where can I find a 10th here or a 10th there just to stay within range in the opening couple of laps?
I think it's really, really difficult. I think, of course, people like Sheldon, they'll make adjustments to their trims, you know, maybe a little bit less downforce, maybe different aero balance, you know, just that they can keep up better. And I think especially at the start, they'll have to attack a little bit harder because, of course, the most efficient way to slow a guy down is to fight with him, to actually stay within the offensive window that he has to get off the line, that he has to defend. And I think the guys will definitely do their utmost, not to help each other, but of course to slow down Dean, because 9 seconds gap, that is quite a sizable gap in a 20-minute race.
It really is a sizable gap, and I'm sure in the next few moments we will get a chance to talk to Dean Vella because we got Justin Mifsud down there with a microphone, hopefully with a chance soon to have a chat. But before we do, Nico, some great drives actually throughout the field. Second and third I thought were really interesting. Dylan De Bono had a really good drive of things in third. Yeah,
I mean, he had this very, very close moment at the beginning with Kirsten Abea. I thought for a moment, actually, that Abea had gone through, that he had used the momentum from the first corner very well, because we saw them going up the S's. Sorry, I wanted to say bus stop chicane for some reason, but completely the wrong chicane for that. That comes later. But just before that start crash that we saw, and really, I thought for a moment at first that those two had crashed, but yeah, no, everyone very civilized and yeah, just stayed clean. So it was very nice to see.
Yeah, it is going to be very nice to see. And we're going to be seeing some excellent action coming up as well in the second race that's coming up. And then focus, of course, will be pertained to a week from today as well, when the second round of the championship, or rounds 3 and 4, as it were, races 3 and 4 of the championship, will be very much in that in the not too distant future. But I believe Justin has found his way into the World Pro Racing arena, and I believe he has found himself the opportunity to go and have a bit of a conversation with some of the drivers out there. So, Justin, I believe if you're down there, over to you. So, there we go. I believe then at this point in time, we are going to just hold on a second here at this point in time. Just having a couple of audio issues here down there at the World Pro Racing Arena. So apologies for that, ladies and gentlemen. But Nico, pushing forward, the next battle that they're going to have is going to be another 20 minutes here. They've had that first understanding of how they go about this track. A couple of drivers haven't really got very far, so they're going to really be on the back foot, having not had those 20 minutes to really bed in the opening round.
Yeah, and I think especially for our last two drivers that obviously were involved in that start crash, it's going to be really, really bad because, well, for one, last place finisher wasn't able to finish at all, and our 8th place finisher, of course, impeded by that start crash. But now we finally got, I think, our interview running now, so let's see if it works better.
Now it should work, right? Yes, I can hear
Yes,
myself as
wonderful.
well. Yes, too many cables, too many wires and everything. But yeah, we have audio again. Dean, first race. How was it? Intense? Because I couldn't see or watch any single move.
I mean, it was, as you can see, it was like, I'm not going to say a Sunday drive, but it was quite comfortable lead. So it was quite chill, let's say that.
Yeah, because somebody entered into the broadcast without permission and I could hear everything going on. So, I saw a bit of your driving, but then I saw other action going on. In terms of pressure, how was it?
I mean, at the start, of course, there's pressure at the start, making sure you get out of turn one and the first couple laps safe. But other than that, it was quite safe. The gap was getting better each lap, so it was there wasn't much pressure, let's say that.
Good. What do you think about the second race?
Just hoping I can actually repeat the same feat. I'll be happy. So.
Hoping no dive bombing, nothing. Yes, now it turns out to that part where everybody gets more excited, especially the top three, to keep their position. And yeah, I don't know if you have any questions from your side, Jake or Nicholas. I will explain to him, repeat again to Dean.
Yeah, so in terms of my question over to Dean, a simple race in terms of breaking out early, a gap of about 10 seconds there by the end. Is it going to be as simple as repeat the formula again in race 2?
Regarding the gap in the first race, you think you're going to keep it in the second race? Or you had a 10-second gap? It's going to be more, as I said, you have to keep focusing and pressure, of course, will start to pile up. Because, of course, you need to keep focusing because you don't know what the rest of the drivers are going to, keep focusing more or try to push more. They are learning at the same time. You have more experience than certain drivers, so never underestimate anyone anyway, because, we have a lot of drivers here where they used to participate in our races, and now we are competing here in our simulation center. So your thoughts if you're going to keep that 10-second gap in the next race?
Well, I hope so, first of all. But if everything goes fine in the first few laps, then it should be doable. If it's done the first time, it should be easily done the second time. So here's hoping.
Wishing you good luck in the next race and the next races to come. There's Goran next to me. Unfortunately, we didn't see him passing by in the intro. Apologies for that. Something went missing from our broadcast, and we've got one missing. So Goran was here competing for the first time. Your experience after, of course, qualifying to the championship and the first race.
Yes, thank you. First of all, no problem. I know it's live event, so anything can happen. About the practice, about the qualifying, I was trying to learn the car, to learn the track also, and I hope in future I can improve, and even maybe in this second race.
Great. What about the drivers? How was it? Did you talk to each other? Did they give you any tips? Don't worry, they're not going to do anything to you, so you can say it. Apart from that, this is part of what we do here. We communicate with everybody, we socialize, and this is one of the things. Apart from this being a national championship, everybody competing for one position to represent Malta in the FIA Motorsport Games. But how was the atmosphere between you guys?
Yes, it is good. We communicate. I think only not Maltese here maybe, but anyway, they speak English. They share with me things that are usual or random, and I hope we can communicate better. I can get to know better the drivers, so in future we can, yes, have a relationship.
It's all about improving yourself and knowing one by one the driver, their skills, their expertise in certain, not expertise basically, it's like, you know, their best and their flaws in certain corners. That's how you win. There's mind games involved as well. It's not about not being a friend or an enemy. But if you want to win, nobody's going to help you. It's a national championship. But there might be where, like Gianluigi did, who's in front of us, said, yeah, you had to give it that amount of liters. So, yes, something like that. But of course, don't take it as an offense if somebody says, no, I have my own setup. Although you have the same setup, but you can adjust to your liking, to your feelings. So it seems good. I mean, everybody's, I think, Nicholas can show us everybody's talking with Adrian as well. Of course, not about giving him extra points or anything like that, but this is something that we're doing. In fact, they are trying to bribe the race director, Andrea Rizzo. There he is. It's a joke, by the way. Yes, that's what we do. Although it's a very serious championship, now it's time for the break. And yes, we're going to do other interviews after the second race and then, of course, the podium. But I leave it up to you because we go for some ads after Jake and Nicholas say whatever they want.
I think it was very succinctly put there by Justin, but we are going to step aside for just one moment here when it comes to action for the multinational GT3 Esports Championship of 2022. We'll be back with race 2 coming up in just a few short moments. the first steps taken then on a very, very arduous journey to the very top of what is possible. 1 race down, 11 races left to go, but 1 more race to conduct here tonight before 1 week from today, we jump over towards round number 2 of the championship, moving away from Watkins Glen and heading over to the Nürburgring and the Grand Prix style version of the Nürburgring, more rather than the Nordschleife. But it's going to be an important challenge now, this second race, for drivers who didn't get what they want here, Nico. They've now got to try and craft a result out of today. For those who have got what they wanted, their job is to do it all over again.
Yeah, and that's the difficult part, you know. Of course, Dean Vella has the advantage now. He has won the race quite dominantly as well. But of course, the disadvantage is now he has the pressure. Okay, I have to do the same thing again. And, you know, interpret it as you want, you know. He has a smaller gap. He doesn't get away as easily. And for the others, that'll instantly have the sign, you know, oh, not invulnerable. We can defeat this if we work hard enough. And that's always these little mental games that drivers have amongst each other.
It absolutely is. Jake Sperry and Nico Hillebrand here, broadcasting here with you with World Pro Racing here with TVM Sport, Motorsport.tv, ESTV, the Esports Television Network. On top of that, we're with Enemed. We're here today with Motorsport Malta. We're here with the Malta Motorsport Federation on top of that as well over on YouTube. So an incredible opportunity to get your racing fix, especially as the road to the FIA Motorsport Games continues here through with us. So we are not a million miles away. We are roughly about 2 minutes or about a minute out from our race, second race, getting itself underway. First race was all about building a gap early, and we saw that from a lot of clean driving through, a little bit of contact in the back. But how hard are you willing to push through the S's section, I think is going to be the story of the day. If you're willing to push it and try and make that move, that's going to be the place where I think it's going to open up for the majority of drivers.
Yeah, not just that. I mean, if you're going side by side in the S's, all of a sudden you have the world's common. It's all very claustrophobic all of a sudden. It's like coming from Road America to Monaco in the span of a couple of meters. And placing your cars properly in that situation is really the most important thing, especially with the changing camber of the corner and, of course, the changing rhythm. Of course, it's flat out as well, so you have to always be aware where you are. And, of course, you don't want to lift because you're going to lose touch with the guys in front. So a lot of challenges for the drivers here, and let's see if they can this time get through it all cleanly.
Let's see, indeed. Of course, 9 drivers here, all looking to try and get themselves up to the very top, and everyone is searching for their limits and going to position A1 in the championship. 25 points, then at least 26 points, you could say, with the fast lap as well, have gone at Dean Vella's way. So every reason to be excited about that. But as they find themselves already pacing around then on their pace lap, just heading up through turn 4 of the S's section, there is car 47, Dean Vella. He knows all he's got to do is convert another race like this. Again, that track's gone down again just to 29 degrees now, track temperature. So the track is dropping. The shadows are going to be getting a little bit longer. And that's something we haven't really talked about, is where do you use your brake markers? And especially in the Assetto Corsa Competizione, of course, back in the day when it came to racing, there was no dynamic day-to-night transitions when it came to racing, and so you could literally pick a shadow out on the circuit and use it as a braking point. You have to be more conventional now, using the various markers that are around the circuit. Maybe use the Toyota Tower as you go through into the bus stop, for example, as a place to brake.
Yeah, it's quite difficult because, of course, here as well, you have the dynamic track temperature. On a certain cooler track, you can also brake a little bit later sometimes, simply because the tarmac, being a bit cooler, has a bit more grip as well. So, yeah, rub it in, and yeah, it's just absolutely wonderful. So, yeah, we can see Sheldon Muscat here now, preparing himself. You can see these small little acceleration bursts and then braking, you know, trying to keep the temperature in. And Dean with his usual facial expression of just completely relaxed, you know, no stress visible whatsoever from him.
everything is calm in the world of Dean Vella right now at the front of the field. You could arguably say where he belongs today in terms of his pace. Was the fastest driver in qualifying, was the fastest driver in race 1, won the race in race 1, and will be looking to try and do exactly the same in race number 2, no doubt about it. So the field then is Vella, Muscat, De Bono, Beja, Rizzo, Andreevski, Mifsud, Martinelli, and then Corral making the 9. So exactly the same order as they were in race number 1 for race number 2. And that will give some drivers then a second wind, a second opportunity to go out there and attack it. But this is a crucial start because they do run through that final corner. They do as well have to wait for that green flag to drop. Give them that opportunity. There is Daryl Martinelli, who is there towards the rear of the field, who will be looking to try and charge forward and make up as many places as possible in the number 1 machine. But there is the driver in position number 1, number 47, Dean Vella, and we'll be certainly hoping that this is the all-important challenge that everyone has been waiting for. They round turn 12, the final corner. They pass the pit attenuator there on the right-hand side in the pits. They will wait for the green flag to drop, and race 2 of 12 is going to get itself, in the next couple of seconds, underway. And there is the green flag, and immediately drivers swarming to try and find a way through. Beja's going to look to the outside, trying to dive in, and Muscat trying to make the pass on the outside line, doesn't quite find it. It's almost a carbon copy here of race 1 at this stage, because again, Beja on the outside trying to find a way through on De Bono. Once again, not going to find it, gets shuffled a little bit out of line. Under Rizzo now having to be really cautious behind, looking to try and get through is Andreevski, who's trying to move over to the inside, pick it up on the run, but the draft's not with Andreevski trying to search on the inside line. On the brakes they go, and Rizzo dives in very deep and effectively gets scared off the line, and there someone's going to spin in the background. Oh, big clip. Gianluigi Corral has had a horrible start to the championship.
Yeah, once again getting kind of caught out. I think he slightly tapped the rear end of the car ahead of him, of Martinelli, I think, and who obviously had to slow down because of Rizzo spinning ahead of him. So really unlucky for him, and then of course hitting one of those very solid barriers on the inside of the loop.
Can very easily happen, of course. Those barriers are there to stop people straight lining the chicane, of course. Dylan De Bono in 3rd position will be looking behind at Kirsten Beja at this point in time and sliding through the heel of the boot. That's opened Beja's opportunity up then. We'll try and go the long way around at the off-camber corner. This will probably be trying to sort it out on the exit, but a whole boatload of oversteer, not once but twice, opens up Andreevski's opportunity then to the inside of turn 11, lifts well out of it, going through, and you could see there a little sigh of relief from Kirsten Beja. That was a case of 3-4, and he's still not done because he's missed the apex at the final corner, and it's on for the race lead as well. Sheldon Muscat is not letting this one go this time. We'll look to the inside for the race lead. Can't find it at the 90.
Yeah, definitely a lot closer this time, and now he's right on the tail of Dean Vella, slots in behind, and now up the S's in the slipstream. Right behind that we actually have the cameraman as well, we could see him there. And you can see him alternating his line, not wanting to get too close yet. And now, out of the S's, onto the straight. Completely on the inside, blocking the assault there, and not quite. Gets on the brakes earlier. Vella, a bit too aggressive there, and gets carried wide. Oh!
That's the mistake that Sheldon Muscat was waiting for. Dean Vella skipping across the road and drops back to 2nd, and now in a fight for 2nd and 3rd because Dylan De Bono is right there. Andreevski, after the opening lap, has the fastest lap of the race, but we'll keep an eye on that after lap 2. But Sheldon Muscat then, for the first time today, first time tonight, leads this race here at Watkins Glen, and we'll be looking to try and run away quickly and build up a gap early. There is Andreevski at the moment, and it looks like Andreevski has had an issue out on track because he's dropped all the way to the very back of the field behind Gianluigi Corral.
Yeah, and that very, very unlucky, of course. Maybe just over-pushed in the chicane as well or somewhere. Didn't quite catch where he lost it, but yeah, definitely unlucky. Rizzo now as well trying to recover from his earlier escapade in the inner loop. and right behind Mifsud now through the last 2 corners, definitely carrying a lot more speed, being a little bit nicer on the racing line there, and a bit further from the outside actually, so you see the slightly differing lines there as well.
Yeah, Nigel Mifsud then in 5th position has just capitalised on those drivers behind Rizzo as well. You do have Daryl Martinelli there behind in the number 1 car, so there is still that chance that this will be a 3-car scrap. And up the S's section, Rizzo completely planted in that Audi R8 LMS Evo 2 at this point in time. Searching inside's going to be covered surely. He'll have to go the long way around, and it becomes a battle. The last of the late breakers into this section takes a much more conventional style going through, a more pointy run through. It was a little bit more straight line from Nigel Mifsud, who dictated the line and did more than enough to cover off the position. So they stay as they are at this point in time, and a crucial lap then in the books for Sheldon Muscat, who has the purple check mark next to his name saying that's an extra bonus point and the fastest lap at this point in time. But don't count Dean Vella out of this race just yet. He'll be driving like the wind to try and chase that gap back down.
Yeah, absolutely. And Rizzo finally getting it done there. Actually, no, sorry, not getting it done there, actually. It's actually Martinelli getting quite close. And actually, if I see that correctly, I think he's in not the Evo 2, so I'm not quite sure what's going on there. Maybe just a graphics bug there. As he tries to go around the outside there of the third to last corner. Now all over Rizzo again, and can't quite quickly enough get out of there. Slightly rear ends the 6th place car. And now all over the back of him again.
Going to have to go the long way around at the final corner, almost front to rear contact as they run through. But now as they drive up, can they find the angle in towards the opening section? Martinelli searching for it, but it's not going to get there in the 90, but this can be used as setup. A little bit, though, struggling with understeer through that opening corner. And in terms of getting that car planted, it's something that you don't often get to see around here, but it is important. How do you really here, in terms of this race, deal with understeer in terms of a vehicle, Nico?
It's difficult because obviously, honestly, at this high-speed corner, you want more understeer than oversteer, as Kirstebeyer there has the definite big case of the latter. And yeah, still caught it very well, didn't have an impact, and actually got it off the racing line, so he wouldn't get hit by another oncoming car there. So, definition of, you know, having good luck in bad luck, having it roughly translated from the German saying, but man, that was, whew. That was definitely very close there.
It certainly was. It was quick thinking Kirsten out there on track. But top 2 now have turned nose to tail again. Muscat and Vella. Vella with the check mark for fastest lap, but is going to have to try and do something quite difficult, and that is pass Sheldon Muscat out there on circuit. Knows that at least by bonus points is ahead in the championship right now with both fastest laps to a name. The lead gap is going to be 2 points as things stand at the moment. Little tap though with the wall out of the final corner, and a little grimace on the face, running now down towards turn number 1. Cannot afford to make those sorts of mistakes pushing, and slightly wide through the opening corner goes Sheldon Muscat. Both drivers then making mistakes at the front of the field, but they are only small mistakes where they can't really capitalise. This will be the first chance though for Vella.
Yeah, absolutely, all over the back of him, and now that long straight now as well, after this already long flat-out section, but not quite able to get close enough yet, looking for the outside, and not able to make a move. Obviously, Sheldon Muscat also masterfully blocking the inside for the chicane here, going fully over the curb, and just wonderful.
Yeah, just a wonderful display of defence then. And it's just about planting the car in the right spaces, because you're able to carry that speed a little bit more. Takes that wider line through the chute, little wiggle off the exit as well, trying to put the power down. It's a lot of torque in the rear of that GT3 Audi, and you have to be very astute to when you can put the power down properly, when you've got that ability to have the aerodynamic grip of the rear spoiler coming back down, planting into the rear tyres as they run once again. Little shake of the draft away from Sheldon Muscat running to the heel of the boot, and we'll have to be careful about that. And behind as well, we've got a fight right down at the bottom of the field, so bookending fights right now. Corral having to defend from Andrzejewski.
And just fights all over the grid, you know. Andrzejewski with bad luck very early on, Corral with bad luck a little bit later on, and I mean, those two guys in the same positions as last time, but definitely made it further than the last race and being very close together. Dean Vella around the last corner now, and instantly you can see Muscat moving over to the inside, trying to break the slipstream as quickly as possible without losing too much momentum, and I think this is going to be very interesting until the very end.
And you can only notice as well that Sheldon Muscat is making one move across to break the draft, then one move back to get it back as Corral, I believe, has gone around out there on track. You can see the machine does not look at its 100% right now. I'd say it's about 90, and Jean-Louis Corral has lost the place. Muscat able to hold then as they go through. Vella clobbering that first curb. That's going to cost him some time as he goes through, and he's going to drop back a little bit to the tune of about 6-7 tenths of a second. But Corral able to keep the car going in 9th position, has dropped back a fair ways at this point in time, so it'll be questioning whether you get through. And also the battle for 4th position as Abejo tries to recover back through the field to Nathan Mifsud. Sorry, not to Nathan Mifsud, sorry, to Nigel Mifsud, who is there in 4th position. So Nigel Mifsud in 4th, doing a great job, a sterling job at this point in time, and they just got the signal as well that they are halfway through this race, so they've got another half to go in terms of how they battle. Nigel Mifsud on the defence right now. Kirsten Abejo will want to try and find a pass quickly.
It's just very, very difficult, you know. You can see how people are pushing like absolute crazy, of course. Abejo obviously wants to get past Mifsud again, but those tires will still be slightly cooking after that large slide that he had. Vella actually had the complete opposite, you know, attacking curbs too hard, then having too much understeer and having to lift off simply because the grass is not your friend, especially not when you're overcooking it at the inner loop. And yeah, Nigel Mifsud just has to keep calm now, has to keep going and keep up this current drive, and at the moment, you know, he seems quite relaxed.
Oh, here we go.
Oh, that's a send.
That's a send and a half. Kirsten Abejo also gets it slowed up on the apex. Mifsud with a bit of contact there, but I thought that was fair play there from Abejo, who got it stopped not only on the racing line, but also pretty much left about a half a car width. There was still the curb to use as well for Nigel Mifsud. I think that was a completely fair move, and Kirsten Abejo just put an absolutely wonderful pass down in, which Nigel Mifsud wasn't alert to.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, honestly, it was a quite late send, but completely fair by any means. Nigel Mifsud obviously also leaving plenty of space, you know. Very fair racing going on there, and Kirsten Abejo now trying to obviously run away as soon as he made that pass so he wouldn't get into the danger zone again.
Absolutely not. You do not want to be in that danger zone by any way, shape or form. There is the gap at the front for Sheldon Muscat, hovering at around a second as Dean Vella tries to use his natural pace to close that gap back up again. 7 minutes, 55 seconds on the clock, and still for Sheldon Muscat, he knows that this race is there. How much curb on the exit does Dean Vella want out of turn 10? He is using all of the road tax available. You can see he is trying to maximize every inch of this upstate New York racing circuit.
Yeah, absolutely, and getting so close to the wall. Obviously, the advantage is that you carry more momentum using more road, but obviously disadvantage there. If you get too close, immediately you'll have some contact. And Kirsten Abejo is more wary of that, while Nigel Mifsud actually gets quite close as well.
Yeah, Nigel Mifsud there, and don't count out Andre Arizzo back there in 6th position. Is also in this race, is also with this availability to battle out in this one. And Andrea, I think, at least in this stage of the race, I think he only gains confidence with the way that he drives. And we saw it in the back end of race 1, the confidence Andre Arizzo had in the late minutes. The last 2 to 3 minutes really did put Kirsten Abejo into the pressure cooker in terms of how this race will go. I think it might be something very similar in the final couple of laps.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's going to be really now the question if these guys can carry up this rhythm, because Abea, he seemed a lot faster when he was chasing Mifsud, you know? Maybe a little bit not so confident yet when he's actually the guy leading, so Mifsud can actually keep up. The same goes for Rizzo as well. So Rizzo is also a guy who's not as comfortable in the lead position, he's more comfortable chasing, and always, you know, this gap, it first went up, now it's going back down again, and now the question is, you know, if Abea can maybe get a little bit of a breakthrough now and actually get that distance, because otherwise he's just gonna pull Mifsud and Rizzo both along.
Yeah, that will be a concern, that Abea's pace will not be enough to break Nigel Mifsud and Andrea Rizzo, and it's just going to bring them into a three-car fight. The fourth position, into the wall slightly. There goes Andrea Rizzo, and that would have been a bit of a concern there going through in sixth position. Just in front of him, Nigel Mifsud would have seen that, would have been happy, because that gives the license to attack from middle position in that trio. But there is Sheldon Muscat, there is Dean Vella, who on that lap just set the fastest lap of the race with a 44.800, and now will be trying to angle up and overtake then on the run to the inner loop and through the right and left. Isn't going to be close enough this time, but look how much pace Vella's trying to carry here. Is there an angle to that inside of the carousel? The chute comes up just afterwards, but it's still not quite there. Vella's done the hard work, got back, now he's got to force the mistake.
Yeah, absolutely, and you can see with the fastest lap as well, and how he constantly kept catching back up after making mistakes. Dean Vella definitely very fast around here, but as you said earlier, you know, driving fast is one thing, passing is the other. So really, really difficult. Sheldon Muscat leaving his defense absolutely spotless at the moment. And, well, that's just, you know, one thing that I think Dean Vella just can't break through right now.
Oh, he looked to the inside, but just as late on the brakes there. And, losing the back end! Round goes Dean Vella in the grass, pushing at exactly the same limit, has backed into the Armco barrier there on the run towards turn 10. That is pretty much going to put an end to any hopes of picking up victory in that one. Sheldon Muscat broke slightly later, covered off the move, but Dean Vella, who was desperate to get on the power earlier, just understeered an inch too far out wide.
Absolutely, and Muscat, I think, eased a little bit of the throttle to ease the wheel spin a bit better, and Vella tried to do, you know, he saw he was going wide, tried the brute force assault there, I think, and just a little bit too much oversteer, and if the rear tires are spinning through like that, you just can't keep going like that, you know, too much traction lost, and unfortunately for Dean, you know, obviously a lot of time lost there.
A lot of time lost, but crucially no positions. Still has the fastest lap of the race as well, so that would still mean that the margin at the top of the standings is 2 points at this point in time. But, of course, we don't quite know who's got driver of the day. That's an extra bonus point on top of that. And if Sheldon Muscat can put the fastest lap on the board, then it's a 2-point swing over to Dean Vella at the front. It's about a 5-second gap to Dylan De Bono in third position right now. Abea fourth, Nigel Mifsud in fifth, Andrea Rizzo in sixth. But crucially at this point in time, Sheldon Muscat has got a ticket to a victory here today right now, Nico, if he can keep the car, that Audi, on terra firma.
Yeah, I think it's quite obvious that he's going to just keep it steady now. He knows when to push, he knows when to hold. He's driven in countless bigger series already as well. And I think this battle really showcased well. Dean is incredibly fast, but he doesn't quite have as much experience as Sheldon. Sheldon knows when to push everything and also when to hold everything, to put it in the words of Ayrton Senna. And yeah, that's really just what saved Sheldon there. You know, this vastly, well, not quite vastly, but you know, this amount of experience that he has more over Dean, and now he knows just, you know, okay, I just have to bring it home. It doesn't matter how close he finishes behind me, as long as he finishes behind me, it's all good.
Speaking of bringing it home, gap of about 2.5 seconds here for Kirsten Abeja in 4th position. And, you got Nigel Mifsud there in 5th. You got Andrea Rizzo in 6th. And those gaps pretty equidistant amongst each other with 2 laps to go. And it would take a dramatic drop-off of pace, at least at this point in time, for Kirsten Abeja to lose that position from 4th down to 5th. But, of course, one of the things that you can't really do at that bus stop, and I think it's one of the most crucial corners, is go too deep, because you'll have to weave about the bollarded chicane that is out there. If you do, just completely miss your braking point. It only takes 1 lapse of judgment to make that happen.
Yeah, that's the problem, you know? You just need one simple, not even a moment, just a fraction. Just the tiniest moment where you're not fully concentrated around this circuit, because it's at such high speeds. You just very quickly lose control of the car here, because you're always pushing, you're always at high speeds. And even at this corner, which, you know, you see on the track map, looks like a hairpin, it's still so quick. Off camber, goes over the crest, and you could see again there, that slight slide that Dean Vella had there. I think also a little bit exaggerated here, because he probably does have a little bit of rear damage after that spin.
Yeah, they'll get the call now. This is the final lap of the race. I am curious about Vella's time over the line. It is a 1:46.1, so a full 1.3 seconds off of fastest. That was a 45.6 from Sheldon Muscat. I think they have used the majority of the good life of the tyres out there, and so it will be dropping on a graded curve at this point in time. Of course, when the tyre makes contact patch with the track, basically the track rubber's in, and there's chemical reactions that go around, which basically says that the tyre has to remain as sticky as possible. If you're losing most of the tyre grip, then you're not going to have as much of a contact patch to work with, and as such, you'll be a little bit slower. There is Nigel Mifsud in 5th position, still holding off Andrea Rizzo. That gap 1.8 seconds over the start-finish line, and as they go through the opening sector, that gap has extended out to 2.3, so 5th position looks secure at this point in time. But what about Sheldon Muscat's drive? What about having to make the pass first and foremost, having to get it done early, unsettle the rhythm of Dean Vella, who has proven to be the fastest driver here today, but just to find that ability to put Dean Vella in a position where he has to go and make a move. He has to effectively dance to your own tune, and he has found that the dance was not quite the one that he wanted, but Sheldon Muscat found the one he absolutely needed. He will tango with Dean Vella all season long, mark my words, rounding through turn 12, making a run to the final section. Yes, with a bit of a tap over the line, and a bit of a chuckle to go with it. Sheldon Muscat has pretty much made it almost parity restored at the top with victory in race 2. Dean Vella will take the championship lead though, heading to the Nürburgring with a fastest lap in the back pocket, and it will be Dylan De Bono, best of the rest, in 3rd position. 2 third places, you can't shake a stick at that. That's a good way to start the season off, Nico.
Yeah, absolutely. Really well done from him, and I would actually say, you know, a nice little pun here. Normally you go for a victory lap. Sheldon Muscat went for a victory tap instead. But yeah, very well done for him. Great race for him, and now he's actually hitting for the little spin here, hitting a bit too much curb. But he will be forgiven for doing so, you know, after the great race that he's driven today.
Thumbs up there, and every reason to be happy about that. The reset back to pits, and his job then done for the opening week's worth of racing. He knows that he is right in the picture, just a couple of points behind, and that victory means a whole lot in terms of the grand scheme of things. So he's got exactly what he wants out of it, and I'm sure that this is going to be a championship fight, at least if this opening round of racing has proven anything. These first 2 races, Nico, we're going to be talking about those 2 drivers, of course, Dean Vella and Sheldon Muscat, all season long.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have to say, you know, just really well driven from him. I'm wondering how for the rest of the tracks it will be like, simply because I know that he has a lot of experience there, but Dean also, you know, not an inexperienced driver overall. I think it'll really come down to who gets along with which track better, and who does the least mistakes, because I would say on pace alone, Dean was definitely the faster driver today, but just that slip up in the early laps, that one short slip up followed by another one when he was trying to attack Sheldon into the inner loop, just not quite able to put everything down. And that, of course, in the end helped us see the race as it played out.
Drivers that learn from experiences like this. So how would you take that as a learning experience, Nico, if you were in the position of Dean Vella?
Well, I'd absolutely say, early race, maximum push, stay ahead of everyone. And while you have to attack, maybe a little bit, try a bit different tactics, try it a little bit more unorthodox, try to push people more. The most fragile thing in the car when you're racing is the human mind. As overall, race cars, very fragile things, but I think, to overpressure it's easiest to do the driver. If you can't get past, force him to make a mistake, do feints. He was doing that already quite nicely into the third to last corner, into that hairpin up the hill, off camber. And, in the end, the person he overpressured himself was himself. So it works both ways. You put pressure on someone else, but of course the pressure goes both ways. So I think that high pressure driving is something that he really has to work on. And other than that, his normal pace, it's already right there.
It already is. And what I think is quite crucial now is how they tackle the Nürburgring, because we've gone from a track where it's a lot easier to overtake here, Nico, to a track which you know and understand very, very well, being a German yourself, is that it's really tough to overtake.
Yeah, of course. I mean, there's a lot of harder braking zones. So I think there's more braking zone, overtakes for opportunity there. But like, how do you say it? It's not as easy to get alongside everywhere. It's more of a one-line circuit than Watkins Glen, because at Watkins Glen you have a lot of on-camber corners. At Nürburgring you basically have more off-camber. You have a lot more elevation, and especially stuff like the Schumacher S. You really can't go side by side there. You have to wait your turn. You have to stay behind the car. You have to work with impeded field of vision when you're following someone. And especially then, if something happens up there, it's a lot more difficult to spot an incident up ahead.
It certainly is. And in terms of now how you challenge that from the middle of the pack, I'm sure the drivers who are in the middle of the pack had a really good race as well, and they'll feel comfortable. Nigel Mifsud had 2 really good races. Kirsten Abeja had a really good recovery in that race to get back into 4th position. You take that momentum into next week saying, I spun the car and I still finished 4th. You got nothing but smiles then from that. One mistake, yes, but I recovered and I didn't lose anything.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, at the same point as well, Andrea Rizzo, at the very beginning of race 2, also very, very unlucky, got a bit too deep into the inner loop. Really, the amount of times I'm saying that corner name, shows you how crucial of a part of the lap that corner, that section, that chicane was. And even then, he was able to recover from that quite well as well. And as we know, Andrea Rizzo is actually one of the guys who doesn't have a sim rig at home. So he's literally arriving here and then getting into the car. And I think some of the guys further in the back actually had the same situation, having the first drives here now.
Yeah, and it really goes to show just how crucial and important a facility like the World Pro Racing Arena essentially is for not only the drivers here in this championship, but on top of that, the Maltese community, and on top of that, the ever-growing development of esports and racing in Malta. Of course, we had that brilliant opportunity to talk with Jonathan earlier on just about how this is an incredible opportunity, an incredible place to go and practice racing and get racing in over, of course, in Malta. But I believe we are a few minutes away. We've got Justin down there getting ready, preparing interviews, and then the podium as well will be going on over there at that point in time. But at least at this moment, you can say that it is a battle of 2 drivers up at the top. It's a 2-point swing, at least as far as we know right now, with fastest laps. Of course, we don't know the driver of the day scenarios at this point in time. But Dean Vella, Sheldon Muscat, they're 2 drivers who know each other incredibly well, have raced against each other many times before. and they will find themselves 1 and 2 at this point in time in the championship, knowing it might come down to who has the most fastest laps at the end of the season to decide who can win this championship. As I believe we got a few drivers down here and getting themselves ready and waiting for an opportunity. Your top 3 are all stood around looking for those opportunities as well, with certain other drivers. I believe somewhere down there in all of the mix is a Justin Mifsud, of course, who has been so instrumental with World Pro Racing. And as well, you can see drivers having a little bit of a chat and a conversation amongst each other out there at this point in time. Running through some of the other drivers there, Andrzejewski back there, just getting some conversations about their races. How did it go for us? How did it feel? And really how intensive those 2 races were, and an entire all-evening event as well. So they've really all been pushing to their absolute limits to get themselves through. But it's nice to see the camaraderie between the drivers, having a nice opportunity to chat after a race like this is score complete. And big smile, thumbs up then from under Arizzo. Every reason to be happy about today's results and today's work that has gone through. But I believe your top 3 all stood there, and top 4, I could say, all stopped there. Happy, Nico, and definitely enjoying their post-race debrief, as it were.
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of the nice things about on-site, just chatting with the drivers. Like, even in other sim racing series, we have that, just chatting on Discord after the races. But here in person, I think it's another, dimension, how much nicer it is still. You can look each other in the face, you can laugh together. You can say, like how upset you were at something in the race together, how to try and, improve for the next time. But it's always very, very nice to see all of this.
Yeah, and you can see as well, this is the steward's room out there at this point in time. So a lot of availability and opportunity then to go through, to have a chance to opportunity. Big smiles all around. Adrian Fagaya there, who has been chief stewarding, having a good fun. A little nice wave as well. Thumbs up. All there, all good. And a good day's worth of racing. Not too much work today for the stewarding team to do. And they will be very happy with that. A light day at the office is always a good day at the office for them and the work that they are doing. And all of the motivations there, of course, the motivational quotes up on the wall. Inspiring racing, of course. Many legendary racing drivers, Michael Schumacher, Niki Lauda, all on those walls, all saying, racing gives you that opportunity to go out and be free. And it gives you that sense of focus and motivation that you are trying to push to 100% the very best that you can give. And it's something that you can actually take out of motorsport and really push into the real world and give in every aspect of your life. That if you can give 100%, you can do so much more, so much better than what is already there and is available to achieve.
Yeah, not just that. I think it's just also such a different hobby, like whether it's virtual or real, you just get sucked into this because I think I will cause a spark of an argument if I keep going too much with that. But, it's a difference to football, because football obviously has strategy and stuff, but in the end, it's all, about team play, about getting the ball in the goal. And motorsport is just on such a broader topic still. It's all about the development of the car, the setup, the everything. A lot of engineering, then getting the pit crew, the drivers, and having all that understanding of it working together, of course, in a deeper... It's so deep to explore. I could fill absolute hours of podcasts with that stuff. And, this incredible feeling of not just a team or, a couple drivers together, just this entire community, the fans, everyone just being there together in this bubble. It's a hobby that, whether it's virtual or real or anything, you're always just there together. You end up with the same people, and no matter who's your favorite driver or what is your favorite team, you all love it for the same reason. That is just racing and this competition. And, you can just see that really well with all the guys just chatting together, laughing together. And it's really, really nice to see that.
It really, really is. And I'm sure that everyone knows just how important and how crucial this is. We can confirm gap at the top of the championship is 2 points between Sheldon Scott Muscat and Dean Avella, 45 to 47 points. Dylan De Bono, of course, third overall on 30 points overall. But I believe we are getting ourselves now ready for podium presentations. Then the drivers have been getting themselves ready for that. But we've had some wonderful action here with the Multinational GT3 Esports Championship here for 2022. Fueled by Enemed and racing on Assetto Corsa Competizione out there overall. And of course, when it comes to this action, this is not the only place where national championships are going about and special events are going in regards to Assetto Corsa Competizione, because Nico, there are other countries all around the world that are trying to find their driver to send to the FIA Motorsport Games.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think that's going to be the really interesting part as well. So after this, it doesn't end obviously. It's just the first step on a long ladder for this year. So let's see who represents Malta in the end and how far they get in the actual motorsport games. So a lot of interest and of course a lot of tension going on as well there.
A lot to keep in mind then, and a lot of focus that will very much be needed to go forward and to put everything together in terms of what is a wonderful, wonderful championship. We can confirm then a week from today they will be heading to the Nürburgring, the second round of the championship. So 2 more races will have to be conducted and constructed in terms of where they go forward. And again, a much different palate cleanser as they go through. And it's also a difference in driving style. So what do you need to do at the Nürburgring, Nico, in order to maximize lap time? Where is the key place you see opening up lap times there?
I think one of the biggest ones is the Mercedes arena, simply being able to tackle, you know, the curbs on the insides of every corner, just having the car perfectly set up there, getting the perfect line, minimum interaction from the traction control, and of course coming up the hill after the Dunlop-Kehre, at the very, very bottom, after you have that entire way downhill, then up the hill from through the Schumacher S and you know, through the 2 corners after it. And you know, it's always about just hitting your marks, being perfectly spot on, and yeah, just being able to keep it consistent as well.
Consistency is key, and I believe consistency is a value throughout every single race in every single category that is needed. If you can stay consistent, you will do so much as a driver. You will get so many different opportunities, and you will jump up leaps and bounds. Trust me and mark my words, consistency is pretty much paramount. It is king and queen, depending on who you are and where you go and what you do. So that is something worth keeping in mind. And of course, on top of everything that's going around, of course, exciting times for Malta. Of course, we did hear that a new track being developed over the next 3 to 5 years. That'll be absolutely massive to develop the scene in Malta. And it is clear to see with, you know, things like this that there is a thriving culture here that will only grow, I would say, tenfold by a brand new racetrack.
Yeah, you know, it's always just nice to see more tracks being built, and I think for, it was also a bit of a smaller track, so obviously with Malta you also have limited space available, it being not the hugest island in the Mediterranean, but definitely well-used space, and it looks like a very technical and fun circuit. So, you know, we're looking with breaths held to see, you know, how that goes, what the end product will be, and yeah, honestly, I hope that I can actually get to visit that track sometime as well.
I hope so too, and I'm sure that there will be chances in the future to see a brand new circuit enacted and raced on, and all of the rest that comes along with what is some amazing racing action. But I'm not sure how close we are to the podium being ready or not. I'm still hearing that they are still trying to prepare that outright, so we will keep word and see as and when we can get ourselves to the podium and how everyone has managed to congregate. I've heard sometimes, Nico, that herding race drivers around is like herding bubbles. It's an almost impossible task.
Yeah, of course. I mean, funnily enough, you know, these guys, a lot of time in racing is just spent waiting. That's also the same in virtual and in real life, you know. But then when you actually need them, when you have an appointment there, you know, they're always somewhere else. and yeah, just trying to get them all together at the same time in the same place. It's always a little bit stressful. So, you know, just getting everyone together, it's more of a challenge than you might think sometimes, because obviously after the race, you know, everyone's still under adrenaline. Everyone has so much to talk about, you know, or, you know, go for a quick after-race pit stop, so to say, in the washroom, and yeah. So you have to take all of those things into account.
Yeah, you absolutely do. So, in terms of now next stages, okay, they've got their first race under the belt. They've got a race next week, but it's not the case of it's a linear 6 weeks, 12 races, 6 races. It's a rather more elongated calendar in terms of it. They do have the week's break, of course, between round 2 and round 3, the week's break, or the 2 weeks break between rounds 3 and round 4, and then effectively the final 3 rounds get conducted within 12 days, which is a really, really tough final stage of the championship, to go 6 races in 12 days and to be at your best. It really doesn't leave much time in terms of that turnaround of getting prepared for a race, finding the time to get it all nice together, from Brands Hatch to Paul Ricard to Mount Panorama. I can't think of 3 more dynamic tracks over towards the end, as I believe at this point in time we have found ourselves with the podium.
Well done, Dylan. Enjoying it? Yes. Of course you do. First of all, well done for first of all, the experience that you had. I'm sure that you improved, for sure, but having the trophy. Your experience after the qualifiers, the qualifying, and 2 races.
It was just like a roller coaster. Starting the practice, I wasn't keen on my pace, and then qualifying I started very bad, and then eventually I performed 2 consistent laps, which eventually I came 3rd. First race, I had good pace, in my opinion, but second race I was a bit disappointed, but at least I managed to keep 3rd, so I'm happy.
The difference before first race and the second race, the last one, how did you feel it? As in terms of pressure, you know that adrenaline rush. Tell us what you're feeling for the viewers out there.
Basically, I started the second race more relaxed than the first one, obviously. But I had some problems with my tires and I was slipping around. I wasn't, and then obviously during the race my heart started to beat, and eventually, but still kept it on the track, barely. And obviously I kept 3rd place.
Well done, Dylan. Hopefully you keep on going, podium after podium, till the final. We go for 2nd place. There you go. Sheldon comes 2nd. Sheldon, tell us your feeling now that you have a trophy. The first trophy from 6 in total. Your feelings?
Exactly. My pace in race 1 was really not good. I couldn't keep up with Dean. But then I made for it in the second race and went for the overtake basically to get first place. In front, of course, so that was important because Dean was faster than me. But I managed to keep in front and finish in first place.
That action last part where Dean lost control, what did you thought at that moment?
I felt sorry for him because I wanted, to stay close with him, to have a battle until the end. But yeah, that happened and I had to just left him.
Well done. Well done, Sheldon. Podium. Let's hope for the next to come. And we go for the first position. Dean Vella, winner of the first round of the Malta National GT3 Esports Championship, fueled by Enemed. Dean, how many hours have you put into the simulator before starting the first round?
A couple for sure. I think around 5, 6-ish. Like just to get some setup work done. But I think not too much, but not too little.
I mean, I counted around 50 hours on Discord, seeing him that he's on Assetto Corsa. So,
sleeping actually, and it will be like on the pause menu. So,
your feeling throughout the whole race in the qualifiers, qualifying in the race, and the two races overall?
Quite positive so far. I mean, the only real issue was the second race. I just got a bit pressured, so I didn't perform as well. But either way, I think it was a very positive outcome. I think it's the best it could get, apart from a couple of issues in the second race. So quite happy.
I hope that you all are happy with your achievement, but doesn't mean that the others who are not on the podium right now, that they're not going to keep pushing. This championship has just started. Doesn't mean that it's easy that these three drivers here are going to win this championship. I would like to thank, of course, Nicholas and Jake, who've been doing colorful commentary. Before we leave it, I leave it to you guys. The whole team behind the scenes, Adrian, race direction, George, stewarding, we have Lon, who's taking photos, all the drivers that participated, all our sponsors, all our stations that are supporting us and promoting all the events that we're doing for the past 5 years. The person in front of me, who is using the camera in a good way so I can show my face, but this is better because these are the winners. We're just promoting them. All those people behind the scenes are putting a show for you guys out there, but actually the drivers that without them we cannot do anything. No championship, no events, nothing. On to you, Jake and Nicholas.
Thank you, Justin, and incredible racing that we've had going on. But Nicholas, your final thoughts before we bring things to a close here with the National GT3 Esports Championship?
Well, no real big thoughts. It was a very entertaining race, and as always, very enjoyable to be a guest here for World Pro Racing, and I'm looking forward to the rest of the series, of course.
Absolutely, and you can find it same time, same place, 1 week from today, because we'll be heading to the Nürburgring for the second round of the Multinational GT3 Esports Championship 2022, fueled by Enemed Racing on Assetto Corsa Competizione. Want to give a massive thanks to TVM Sport, Motorsport TV, and ESTV, the Esports Television Network, for some amazing help and work here with us, as well as, of course, the Malta Motorsports Federation, Enemed, and Motorsport Malta as well over in YouTube as well. So massive thank you to all of them. From Nicholas Hillebrand, from Justin Mifsud, the entire team back there, my name's Jake Sperry, and it is a win but a challenging fight coming up. Vella and Muscat, the top two from today, proved that they were the cream of the crop and the two drivers to beat. But Dylan De Bono's there, Kirsten De Beha had a really good run as well. Watch out as well for Nigel Mifsud and Andrea Rizzo. They could go from strength to strength later on in the season. The Nürburgring, led by Jackie Stewart, the long version of the Nordschleife. That is the green hell. But that doesn't make the Grand Prix style layout any less difficult. We'll see you 1 week from today when we tackle the Nürburgring.